the most powerful phone in history. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 126. After Xu Feng finished his meal, he didn't go home, so he called Fang Licken directly and asked him to meet. And it happened to be the weekend. Fang Licken was resting at home, and the two met in a coffee shop. Fang Licken knew why Xu Feng was looking for him, and he said as soon as they met, "What you asked me to do has already been done, and I have bought all the stocks of all the retail investors of the Song Group within the past 2 months." Xu Feng approached Fang Licken for this matter. Of course, he was very happy to hear the good news, but he still asked, "What percentage do the stocks of these retail investors account for in the total stocks of the Song Corporation?" "About 15.00%. Fang Licken pushed his glasses. "Madman, what exactly are you buying Song Group stock for?" Xu Feng took a look at Fang Licken, turned a few thoughts in his mind, and finally prepared to tell him the truth. "I want to bring down the Song Group. Break down the Song Corporation." Fang Licken opened his mouth wide in surprise, and it took him a long time to calm down. He murmured, "Madman, the Song Corporation is a listed company with over 1 billion assets. Can you really do it?" He didn't ask Xu Feng why he wanted to bring down the Song Group, but only cared about whether Xu Feng could do it. "This is brotherhood. No matter who your enemy is, let's fight together." Xu Feng smiled at him. "I will definitely do it, but it is estimated that, % of the stock is not enough. Lao Feng, can you help me find out about the members of the Song Group's board of directors and their shareholdings?" "No problem, since it's what you want to do, a lunatic. Of course I will fully support you. By the way," Fang Licken took out a bank card from his pocket and handed it to Xu Feng. "The money, probably more than 50. As he spoke, he pushed the card from the table to Xu Feng. Xu Feng took the card and looked at it, then returned the card to Fang Licken. "You can take the money, it's your hard work for helping me." "Madman, I won't accept this money." "Why would I accept money for helping you, brother?" Fang Licken shook his head and said, "Don't be polite to me. Brothers have to settle their accounts clearly, so that I will not bother Lao Feng when I have something to do in the future." After Xu Feng said so, Fang Licken reluctantly accepted the bank card. After the two finished drinking coffee, Xu Feng said goodbye to Fang Licken, and then returned to the villa. It is already winter, and it is more than half a year before graduation. In a blink of an eye, the spring festival is approaching, and a year is about to pass. Xu Feng thought about it for a while, and decided to deal with the matter of the Song Corporation, and let's talk about it next spring. After he planned to go to school to say goodbye to Tang Xining, he would go back to his hometown to spend the new year with his parents. When he came to Jiangcheng University, Xu Feng called Tang Xining at the gate of the school and learned that she was also on winter vacation. Tang Xining happily ran out of the school. Like a beautiful landscape, the boys on the road all looked sideways at her. When she ran in front of Xu Feng, she was already out of breath, and her small face was stained crimson due to excessive exercise. "Why are you running in such a hurry? I didn't rush you." Xu Feng smiled angrily. I want to see you soon." Tang Xining panted, "You haven't heard from me for more than 2 months this time." Xu Feng rubbed his nose, smiled lightly, and asked Tang Xining without explaining anything, "By the way, you're on winter vacation, when will you go home?" "I'm not going home this year. My parents and their, wedding anniversary this year, and they're going to travel to Europe during the spring festival holiday. I don't want to be a light bulb with them." Tang Xining stuck out her little tongue as she spoke cutely. "That's it, then you're going to spend the spring festival at school." "Well, there's no way, I'm alone when I go home, so I won't go back. What about you?" I'm ready to go home. I'll come back after the new year. I'm here today to say goodbye to you," Xu Feng said, suddenly remembering that the villa was empty after he left. "By the way, if you don't go home, you can move to my villa." "I don't want it." Tang Xining wrinkled her nose. "It's too scary to live alone in such a big house, and I'm at school alone during Chinese New Year. I'm so pitiful." Xu Feng was taken aback, and smiled wryly. "Xining, are you the only one in your dormitory?" "That's right, they're all back home." Tang Xining grabbed the hem of her clothes with her small hands, lowered her head with a pitiful look. Xu Feng was helpless. He really couldn't bear to let her stay at school alone like this, but if she stayed with her, Her parents would not be able to take care of her. My mind suddenly brightened, and I thought of a way to get the best of both worlds. Xining, I have a solution. Why don't you come back to my house with me to celebrate the new year? Ah. Tang Xining quickly raised her head and glanced at Xu Feng, then lowered her head and said, "Is this okay? If I go home with you, will your parents be okay?" "It's okay. My parents are very nice, and they will definitely welcome you very much." Xu Feng smiled lightly. "Then, that's fine." In this way, Xu Feng finally took Tang Xining back to his hometown. From Jiangcheng to Xu Feng's hometown, it only takes 5 or 6 hours by car. Along the way, Tang Xining was in a state of excitement, constantly grabbing Xu Feng and asking questions. From the various preferences of Xu Feng's parents to the situation of Xu Feng's younger sister Xu Yaotong, she asked all over. She said that only in this way would she not make mistakes at that time, and Xu Feng also told her one by one with a smile. He also had a strange feeling in his heart. This was the first time he brought a girl home. At that time, he saw Tang Xining alone at school for the new year, so he made a decision. Now that he thought about it, why did he bring his daughter-in-law to see her in-laws? Period. So after Tang Xining's questioning, Xu Feng unconsciously became a little nervous. When they arrived at the county town, after getting off the car, Tang Xining went straight to the largest shopping mall to buy gifts for Xu Feng's parents and younger sister. Xu Feng couldn't do anything to stop him. After spending more than 2 hours shopping for good things, Xu Feng took a taxi and rushed home with Tang Xining. Not long after, the car arrived at Xu Feng's hometown. Xu's father and Xu's mother knew on the phone that their son would be back today, and they were waiting for him at the entrance of the village early. When Xu Feng got out of the car, they found it immediately and surrounded him, calling Xu Feng's name. But soon, they found that not only their son got out of the car, but also a young and beautiful girl. At first they thought the girl was a stranger who came back by carpool with their son, but when she came up and called them uncle and aunt kindly, they were completely stunned. But after a moment of sluggishness, the expression on his face turned into ecstasy, and the one who came back with his son and called him uncle and aunt, so needless to say, it must be his son's girlfriend. Especially when they saw Tang Xining's beautiful and lovely appearance, they were even more delighted. They held Tang Xining's hand, chatted with her enthusiastically, and led her to the house first, but left Xu Feng completely aside. Period. Xu Feng smiled wryly, and had no choice but to mention the various gifts Tang Xining had bought, and follow them towards the house. It is the last moment of 2016, and the new year is about to usher in. On this last day of this year, I am still queuing up at the hospital to see a doctor. For me, 2016 is the most unfriendly year and the most difficult year. I hope that in the new year, the bad luck will be eliminated and a new chapter will be ushered in. I also wish all book lovers a happy new year. 2017, a new start. I will work hard to code. Come on. Chapter 127, The Warmth of Home. The journey from the entrance of the village to home was extremely difficult. During the Chinese New Year, all the villagers came back, and when they suddenly saw Tang Xining, who was so beautiful and foreign, the villagers unconsciously came up to ask questions. However, Tang Xining was beyond Xu Feng's expectation, and handled it with ease. Facing the curious inquiries of the villagers, she always responded sweetly with a smile on her face, and everyone who talked to her was satisfied. Xu Feng's parents were smiling from ear to ear, enthusiastically introducing Tang Xining to the villagers. Their son brought back such a polite and beautiful girlfriend, and they were full of pride in their hearts. Only Xu Feng smiled helplessly at the back. Of course he couldn't go up and explain that Tang Xining was not his girlfriend at this time, and during their introduction process, Tang Xining seemed to acquiesce in the identity of Xu Feng's girlfriend. By the time they got home after walking this section of the road, everyone in the village knew that the kid from the Xu family had brought back a girlfriend from the city who looked like a fairy. After returning home, Tang Xining took out the presents she bought and gave them to Xu Feng's parents respectively. The two of them were naturally happier, but Xu Feng's younger sister was not on vacation yet. Xu Feng's mother was busy cooking as soon as she got home. Tang Xining even asked for help, and the two happily went to the kitchen to work. But Xu Xinglian left Xu Feng in the living room and asked him to tell the truth about how he met Tang Xining. Xu Feng had no choice but to talk about the cause and effect of the incident. Dad, Xining and I are just ordinary friends, because she was alone at school during the spring festival, so I invited her to our house to celebrate the new year together. Ordinary friends. Su Xinglian opened his eyes wide. No way, when I saw her looking at you, there was no doubt that her eyes showed affection. You don't think you want to be irresponsible to others, do you? Where do I have it? Dad, you really think too much? We are really ordinary friends. Xu Feng said helplessly. I don't think so. Is it because you are thin-skinned and embarrassed to confess to others? If the girl is willing to go home with you during the Chinese New Year, it must be interesting to you. Your father is from my past. Listen to me, you are right, be good to them. Su Xinglian said earnestly. Dad, not. Xu Feng was about to say something, but Tang Shining came out of the kitchen, happily ran over and sat down, and said to Su Xinglian with a smile, Uncle, what are you talking about? Su Xinglian smiled, and was about to confess to Tang Shining. When Xu Feng saw this, he quickly pulled Tang Shining up, and said to her, Shining, let's go and decorate your room, sleep well tonight. Okay. Tang Shining smiled shyly, and followed Xu Feng away. Xu Feng's house is a small 3-story Western-style building with enough rooms. He took Tang Shining to the guest room on the 2nd floor, took out the bedding from the closet, and the two of them quickly made the bed together. Xining, I have something to tell you. Xu Feng hesitated. Hee, what's the matter? Tang Shining asked with a pretty smile. That's that? If my parents say something strange, you don't be angry. Xu Feng stammered a little. Strange words? Uncles and aunts didn't say strange things to me. Tang Shining blinked her big eyes and stared at Xu Feng. What do you mean by strange words? Xu Feng rubbed his nose, and said awkwardly, It's fine if there is none, I just said it in advance, lest they accidentally say the wrong thing. Next, the two went downstairs to eat. The table was full of dishes, all of which were Xu Feng's mother's specialty dishes. Tang Shining was full of praise after eating them. Her mouth is indeed sweet, and what she said can always make Xu Feng's parents laugh. The whole family sat together and ate happily, and Xu Feng suddenly felt particularly satisfied. There are many things in life that can be pursued, but only the love of family members is the most important thing in Xu Feng's heart. In this way, Tang Shining stayed at Xu Feng's house, and after a few days, Xu Feng's younger sister came back from school vacation. Xu Feng was originally worried that his younger sister would not get along with Tang Shining, but in fact, when the two of them met, they were like sisters who hadn't seen each other for many years. They couldn't be better, chatting happily together. The two exchanged girls' clothes and cosmetics together, and even slept directly under the same quilt at night. In this way, Tang Shining was added to Xu Feng's family. They got along harmoniously and happily, and they had a happy new year together. During the Spring Festival in rural areas, there are still many customs that have been handed down, such as going to the family ancestral hall to worship ancestors on New Year's Eve, posting Spring Festival couplets, eating dumplings at the New Year's Eve, and setting off firecrackers to bid farewell to the old and welcome the new. All of this is very new to Tang Shining. She grew up in a small city, and she feels that the Spring Festival is no different from other festivals. This year's Spring Festival is the first time she feels the taste of the year in the countryside. During the Chinese New Year period, Xu Feng carefully observed his parents' bodies and asked them how they felt. Both of them reported that their bodies were much better than before, and they didn't feel any discomfort. In this way, Xu Feng knew that zombie energy crystals should have no side effects on the human body, and he still kept a few in his personal space. Taking this opportunity, he took one for Tang Shining and his younger sister Su Yaotuang. Energy crystals can improve the overall quality of the human body, reduce the probability of getting sick, and make the people he cares about healthy. This is what Xu Feng can do for them temporarily. During the Chinese New Year period, the people in the village got to know Tang Shining better through contact, and they all praised her full of praise, saying that the Xu family had a good daughter-in-law. When the villagers chatted with Xu Xinglian and his wife, there was envy in their voices. Although all of this was a coincidence, Tang Shining's role as daughter-in-law of Xu's family has gradually become solid. Xu Feng was powerless to deal with all of this, and it was not that he had never thought about his relationship with Tang Shining. Tang Shining's affection for him, he is not a wooden person, how could he not feel it? He is also tempted by Tang Shining in his heart. If everything was normal before there was no system, when he met Tang Shining, he would definitely cherish her very much. But with a mobile phone system, his life has been changed since then, and he suddenly dare not accept Tang Shining's love hastily. Because he doesn't know where his future will be, there are risks in traveling to different worlds, Maybe one day he will die in a certain plane? The system has brought changes to oneself, but at the same time it has brought the biggest change to one's life. If the future is uncertain, how can one be happy? So Xu Feng was also conflicted and entangled in his heart. He didn't know how to deal with and face all these. But fortunately Tang Xining is still studying. There is still time to think about everything. Xu Feng is going to improve his strength as soon as possible, at least to make the future less illusory. Maybe at that time, he will reconsider the relationship with Tang Xining. The Spring Festival is very short. Time passed quickly. Xu Feng and Tang Xining bid farewell to their parents, returned to Jiangcheng, and devoted themselves to the new year again. Chapter 128 Comprehensive Layout. After returning to Jiangcheng, Tang Xining also started school and continued to go to school. Xu Feng began to prepare to take action against the Song family. It is not too late for a gentleman to take revenge, but now that everything is almost ready, there is no need to let a potential danger live in front of his eyes all the time. Letting Feng Licken buy the shares of the Song Group was the first step of the whole plan. Now that this step is completed, the next step is to proceed to the next step. For a listed company, the best way to make it fall is to let its stock shrink and then start to fall off a cliff. This will be a fatal blow to a company. When the market is normal, a company's stock will suddenly plunge. There are only a few cases, or there are major quality problems in the company's products. For example, after the Sanlu tainted milk powder was released in the past, the stock price must have plummeted. The recent Samsung bomb will also shrink the market value of Samsung. There is another kind, that is, key figures in the company are suddenly exposed to big scandals in the news, such as financial opacity, or indiscretion in private life, which will make shareholders lose confidence in a company. Xu Feng knew that the next thing he had to do was to start from these two aspects and find out the problems of the Song Group. If everything goes well, when the news breaks out, the Song Group stock will definitely plummet, and if you take the opportunity to sell 15.00% of the stocks in your hands, the Song Group will definitely collapse. As for a company like the Song Group, Xu Feng didn't believe that there would be no problems. As long as he looked for it, he would definitely be able to find it, but it was impossible to do these things by himself. After thinking about it for a while, Xu Feng was going to go to Liu Dadan. He had saved his life, but he agreed to help him. Now is the time to use this favor. There was Liu Dadan's number stored in a mobile phone, so he called him directly. When Liu Dadan heard that Xu Feng wanted to find him, he asked Xu Feng to wait at home without saying a word, and he sent someone to pick up Xu Feng directly. Xu Feng didn't refuse either, and reported the address of his villa. Not long after, Wang Hu drove a BMW to pick him up. After arriving at Liu Dadan's house, Xu Feng directly stated the purpose of his trip after the meeting. "Boss Liu, I'm here this time to ask you to help investigate something." "Oh, I don't know what Sir wants to investigate. The matter of Sir is my matter, so don't mention the word of helping." Liu Dadan said sincerely. He still kept the power of Xu Feng's last battle in his heart. Xu Feng didn't want to hide it, and directly said that he wanted to investigate all unfavorable news about the Song Group. And Liu Dadan, as an upper class in Jiangcheng, is very familiar with the Song Group, which is also one of the big enterprises in Jiangcheng. After hearing this, he didn't ask Xu Feng why, but just said okay. Liu Dadan is very familiar with investigating news and probing people's privacy. What he runs is the entertainment industry in Jiangcheng. Such means. "Then please, Boss Liu, please let me know if you have any news." Xu Feng took his leave. After saying that, he was very relieved to leave this matter to Liu Dadan, and the next thing was a matter of time. When the negative news broke out, Song's stock price plummeted. Coupled with his own selling, it would definitely hit Song's hard, but all of this was not enough to kill a group. In other words, Xu Feng's goal is not to let the Song family die, he just wants to make Song Xianhu lose everything he owns. Since the Song Corporation is a listed company, when the stock price plummets, many people will definitely sell their stocks. Xu Feng's plan is to take advantage of everyone's selling at that time to buy the bottom. So at the lowest price, the Song family was acquired. At that time, the Song Group may not be called the Song Group, and it is unknown whether it will be renamed the Xu Group. All of these are interlocking. Xu Feng thought about it carefully, and found that there was only one problem. If he really bought the Song family at that time, it would be equivalent to standing on the bright side. The money he bought from the Song family will definitely attract everyone's attention. In Huaxia, If an ordinary person suddenly has so much money, the police will definitely come to investigate. Then the best way is to launder your current money. There is also a set of processes and methods for money laundering, and there are also deep ways in it. However, when Xu Feng was in college, he once took an economics class. At that time, he specialized in money laundering, but he didn't expect that it could be used today. He didn't want to rely on Liu Dadan for this matter, but chose to do it himself. First of all, Xu Feng went to the Jiangcheng Industrial and Commercial Bureau to register a company. In Huaxia, as long as the startup capital is sufficient, it is very easy to register a company, and many leather bag companies come here. What Xu Feng registered can be regarded as a leather bag company. After all, he just used the company's shell to launder the more than $1 million he got from selling gold. The name of the company is Xu's Cultural Technology Company. The reason why it is named as a culture is because the cultural industry is the best place to go in money laundering. Many corrupt officials or people with unknown sources of money use the money to buy collectibles such as antiques, calligraphy and paintings, or simply invest in making movies and TV series. After the money goes through the turnover, it is slowly bleached. Xu Feng's plan is the same, but he saves a step and plans to directly find someone to forge the company's transaction data. If the company's financial transaction data is faked, it needs professional people to do it well, and Xu Feng can't do it by himself. So he went to his alma mater, Jiangcheng University, to recruit. The economics department of Jiangcheng University can be regarded as the top in China. Xu Feng is not short of money, and the direct salary is more than one a month. He thought that there would be many applicants, but it is very difficult for college students to find a job nowadays. But in the end, after waiting for a week, the only person came, and it was a girl. Xu Feng rented a room in a not-so-prosperous office building to use as the company's office in order to do a full set of plays. When the girl knocked on the door of the company and found Xu Feng alone inside, her first reaction was to turn around and leave. Xu Feng had quick eyes and quick hands to stop her, and finally took a lot of effort to explain to her to convince her that he was not lying, but Xu Feng guessed that the Jiang University graduation certificate he showed played a role. The girl's name is Lu Mangsu, a recent graduate. After chatting with her, Xu Feng realized why she was the only one who applied for the job, because everyone else regarded his recruitment information as a scam. After all, no one has heard of his Xu's Culture and Technology Company, and the reason why Lu Mangsu applied for the job was because she couldn't find a job and was desperate, trying her luck. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 129 Undercurrent. I heard that she couldn't find a job, but Xu Feng felt a little sympathetic towards her. He remembered that when he graduated, he was still struggling to find a job, but today he has his own company, although it is just a shell company. So he comforted Lu Mangsu, telling her to follow him and work hard, and there would definitely be meat to eat. Lu Mangsu originally saw that there was only one person in the company, so she wanted to leave immediately. She didn't feel at ease until she saw Xu Feng's graduation certificate and knew that he was an alumnus who was only 1 year older than herself. Among the alumni, there were many topics to talk about, and the two quickly became acquainted. After getting acquainted with each other, Lu Mangsu asked about the specific situation of Xu Feng's company and the specific work she would do in the future. Xu Feng recruited her because he wanted her to make fake accounts for him. Of course, it was impossible to hide it, so he told the truth. After Lu Mangsu heard this, she wanted to go out again and recruit herself to make fake accounts. The more you look at it, the more unreliable it is. Xu Feng stopped her again with sharp eyesight and quick hands, and then began to persuade her with all kinds of earnest words, telling her that he was definitely not doing bad things, and the money to be laundered did not come from any wrongdoing. There is no way. It took so long for her to apply for the job alone. Xu Feng was afraid that if he missed her, he would not be able to find anyone else. It took a lot of effort, plus various guarantees and promises, to reluctantly keep Lu Mangsu. Alright, if I find out that the situation is not what you said just now, I will be the first to report you. Lu Mangsu said with a serious face and righteous words. Okay, if I lie in any way, you can report me as you like. Xu Feng also replied very simply, that his money was originally innocent, and it was just in case that his money was laundered through the company, and there was nothing shameful about it. So everything was settled like this, and then Xu Feng asked someone to renovate the office. After making it look like that, the company was officially established and had employees. It's just that this company only has Lu Mengsu as an employee, and the company doesn't have any actual business. Lu Mengsu's job content was to fabricate a series of false transactions, which could be regarded as applying what she had learned to her. Xu Feng handed over the company's key to Lu Mengsu, and asked her to go to work in the company by herself every day, but his boss only visited the company occasionally. All these things are on the right track, and everything is proceeding in an orderly manner. The moment they are all completed is the time when the Song group will perish. Xu Feng was planning to deal with the Song group, and Song Xianhu did not sit still. After the last auction, the threat Xu Feng brought to him made him restless. In addition, he sent an assassin to kill Xu Feng, but there was no news of the assassin since then. He was even more afraid of Xu Feng in his heart. Although he did not believe that Xu Feng could shake the Song group by himself, Xu Feng's force made him afraid. He is very clear about the killer's strength. If Xu Feng can kill the killer, does that mean that he can take his own life at any time? All this made Song Xianhu feel very insecure, and he became more determined to get rid of Xu Feng quickly. But at this moment, a piece of news made him find a breakthrough. The last time Yan Kong sought revenge from Liu Dadan, but was defeated by Xu Feng. Although the incident happened on the island in the middle of the lake, there were other people on the scene at the time, so the news leaked out after all. And Yan Kong, the reason why he was able to learn martial arts all over his body and achieve great internal strength is because he was under the Lin family, a hidden martial arts family in China. This Lin family is a family of martial arts that is hidden from the world, very low-key. Ordinary people don't even know that there is such a family. But I don't know, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Although the inheritance of martial arts has reached modern times, many have been lost, and the whole has fallen into trough. But secretly, there are still people who practice martial arts, like Zhang Qishan, the former owner of the Victory Martial Arts Museum, and Meng Shan, the killer who assassinated Xu Feng, are all martial artists who have cultivated their inner strength. In China, many high-ranking officials and dignitaries are surrounded by such inner strength warriors. Even in the army, there is a special force composed entirely of internal fighters, which is dedicated to performing some special tasks for the country. The Lin family is well known in the entire hermit family, because their family has a master-level master in charge. The levels of modern Chinese martial arts can be roughly divided into external strength, internal strength and master. Grandmaster-level masters, in today's China, can be said to be rare. A master-level master is rumored to be able to deal with an army with one person. In ancient times, those fierce generals who were able to take the head of a general among thousands of armies were many masters who had reached the master level in martial arts. Therefore, the Lin family, which has a master level expert, can be said to be one of the best families in China. But Yan Kong ran away angrily after having a conflict with Liu Dadan back then, and by chance, he joined the Lin family. After stepping into the door of martial arts, he realized how ignorant he was before. In the face of absolute power, all the money and power he pursued were nothing but passing smoke. From then on, he devoted himself to martial arts, and was obsessed with martial arts. He had no other distractions. Therefore, although he only started in his 20s, he advanced rapidly. It only took more than 10 years to develop his inner strength. Such a speed is very rare even in the entire Lin family, and the Lin family is very optimistic about him, and the master of the Lin family even accepted him as a personal disciple. Yan Kong practiced in the mountains for 10 years at a stretch, and when he reached his inner strength, he suddenly remembered the hatred he had in the past. Although he is no longer attached to money and fame in this world, he still wants to avenge Liu Dadan's harm to him. So he bid farewell to his teacher, and went out to Jiangchang alone to seek revenge from Liu Dadan. Originally, with his great cultivation of internal strength, revenge is a sure thing, and the fact is the same, none of the people around Liu Dadan can stop him. It's a pity that he met Xu Feng in the end, and lost with just one move, and was killed by Liu Dadan in the end. When the Lin family led him out, they didn't worry at all. They thought that Yan Kong would soon finish his revenge and return to the mountain. But in the end, they didn't know that Yan Kong had an accident until they heard from Yan Kong. As a hermit family, the Lin family didn't easily interfere with worldly affairs, but Yan Kong was different. He was a very talented disciple, and he was accepted as a direct disciple by their master. Such a disciple died outside inexplicably. Of course, the Lin family couldn't let it go, so they sent the eldest disciple of the sect to Jiangcheng to investigate in person. And Song Xianhu had no access to these news. After all, although he is a rich second generation, he doesn't know much about inner strength warriors and about Jianghu than ordinary people. But Zhehong, the butler beside him who has been in charge of serving him, is a martial artist with inner strength, and Zhehong told him all these news. Chapter 130 Conspiracy. The housekeeper, Zhehong, is also a martial artist with a small internal strength. He has followed Song Xianhu's father since he was young, and knows a lot about things in the Jianghu. The eldest disciple of the Lin family came to Jiangcheng to investigate and did not deliberately conceal his whereabouts. The entire Jianghu circle knew about it, and Zhehong also heard about it from his friends. Song Xianhu heard the news from Zhehong, and after turning his head a few times, he had a new idea to deal with Xu Feng. Uncle Jem, according to what you said, that Yan Kong was defeated by Xu Feng, and then he was shot by Liu Dadian before he died. That's right. After I heard the news, I personally went to find a bodyguard who was there at the time. It should be right. Well, Uncle Jem, go and invite the eldest disciple of the Lin family to me right now. I want to treat him personally. Just say that we have first-hand information about the cause of Yan Kong's death. According to what Song Xianhu said, Zhehong personally invited Lin Dong, the eldest disciple of the Lin family. Lin Dong is the first disciple of Lin Nanshan, the master of the Lin family. He was originally a branch of the Lin family, but he had outstanding talent since childhood. He was favored by Lin Nanshan, and he took him by his side to teach him personally. The Lin family is the closest to the Grand Master realm. As a local snake, the Song family has a lot of resources, so they easily found the hotel where Lin Dong was staying in Jiangcheng. Zhehong came to visit in person, and Lin Dong heard that he was a fellow martial artist, so he didn't refuse to see him. When Zhehong said he wanted to invite Lin Dong to the Song family as a guest, he originally refused, but he heard that the other party had the inside story of his junior brother Yan Kong's death, so he finally agreed to the invitation. Following Zhehong's arrival at Song Xianhu's luxurious villa, a table of sumptuous food and drinks had already been set up in the hall of the villa. And on the side of the hall, there were two beauties who were dressed in enchanting and seductive clothes, and they seemed to be prepared for Lin Dong. Lin Dong is about 30 years old. He is tall and introverted. He has an invisible murderous look, and his eyes glance inadvertently, which will give people a strong sense of oppression. Song Xianhu sat on the table facing Lin Dong with a smile on his face, and kept saying nice and flattering words in his mouth. He is a playboy. If he hadn't asked Lin Dong, he wouldn't have been so humble. It's a pity that the expression on Lin Dong's face didn't change at all during the whole process. He kept a cold face, and he was indifferent to Song Xianhu's various flattery. Song Xianhu concealed his embarrassment, suppressed the anger in his heart, and asked the two beauties standing aside to accompany him for a drink, but Lin Dong refused straight away. It seemed that he was not interested in women at all, and he never glanced at the two women from the beginning to the end. Song Xianhu had no choice but to let them back down. Lin Dong sat down and only drank a glass of wine, then said in a cold voice, "I heard that you know how my junior brother was killed. Please tell me now, and nothing else is necessary." "No, I don't like to beat around the bush." Yes, haha, Master Lin is indeed an expert in martial arts. I was reckless and abrupt. Song Xianhu smiled again, but secretly greeted all 18 generations of Lin Dong's ancestors in his heart. In his heart, he hated martial arts practitioners more and more. His number one enemy, Xu Feng, was like this, and Lin Dong, who was about to be used by him, had the same bad temper. But thinking that he could provoke him to fight Xu Feng immediately, he still couldn't help being happy. So he suppressed his unhappiness, and said with a smile on his face, "Master Lin, your junior brother Yan Kong, when he came to Jiangcheng a few months ago, I also wanted to entertain him. You masters who practice martial arts are very admired and respected." These words against his will and falsehoods didn't have any echo in his words. He sighed and continued, "At that time, Master Yan told me that he was going to settle a feud, and he would have a drink with me when he was done. Of course I was very happy at the time, so I promised to wait for him. Unfortunately, after I said goodbye to him that day, he never heard from him again. It's my fault too. I cared too much about Master Yan at the time. I secretly sent someone to follow him and found out that he disappeared on Jiangxin Island in Jiangcheng. After that, I learned the truth about Master Yan Kong's death after many inquiries. I didn't expect that I would never have a chance to drink the drink. I agreed with him. Song Xianhua said everything in a plausible manner, and wiped away his tears at the end, as if he had really come into contact with Yan Kong. On the other hand, Lin Dong just listened silently, with no change in expression on his face. In fact, Lin Dong only knew that his junior brother came to Jiangcheng for revenge, but Yan Kong never told him who he was seeking revenge for and who the enemy was. So this time he was ordered by his teacher to investigate, but he had no way to start and had no clue. Seeing that Song Xianhua had a nose and eyes in front of him, he said calmly, "Then I don't know what the result of your investigation is? How did my junior brother be killed?" Song Xianhua said in a low voice, "Well, it turns out that Master Yan took revenge on Liu Dadan of the Xianyu group that day, and they agreed to settle their grievances on Jiangxin Island. Unexpectedly, Master Yan was ambushed in the end, but he is very powerful, and Liu Dadan called him. Although there were many, Master Yan still swept them all by himself. But one of the people Liu Dadan invited was Xu Feng, who was also a warrior. Master Yan Kong defeated him at that time, but because he was also a warrior, he didn't kill him. When he was about to take revenge on Liu Dadan, that Xu Feng sneaked up from behind, avenged him and killed Master Yan. Oh? I do have a question. Why do you talk about it as if you saw it with your own eyes? Could it be that you were there at the time?" Lin Dong said coldly. "No, for the sake of investigation, I paid a lot of money to buy one of Liu Dadan's bodyguards who was at the scene at that time. He told me himself." Song Xianhua continued to speak nonsense with his eyes open. Lin Dong was silent for a while after listening, and then a smile appeared on his cold face for the first time, but this smile on his face was more frightening than when he didn't smile. "Master Song, thank you for the information you provided, then I will take my leave first." Song Xianhua didn't expect Lin Dong to be so calm after listening to it. His purpose was to draw Lin Dong's hatred to Xu Feng. "I could only ask hastily, Master Lin, I don't know what your plan is next. Are you going to seek revenge on Liu Dadan and Xu Feng?" Lin Dong kept a stiff smile on his face, and his voice was incomprehensible. "What? Do you have any good suggestions, Mr. Song?" Song Xianhua quickly shook his hand and said, how dare, I just collected the information about Xu Feng after inquiring about the news at that time. Master Yan is the first warrior who does not dislike me and is willing to make friends with me. If he's not dead, maybe he and I will become good friends now. So although I can't do anything about Xu Feng, I also secretly collected all his information, hoping that one day I might have the opportunity to deal with him. Now that I have finally waited for you, Master Lin, I want to provide these information to you, can be regarded as my contribution to Master Yan. After speaking, Song Xianhua got up and went into the room, and when he came out, he took a stack of files and handed them to Lin Dong. Lin Dong accepted it without refusing, but he didn't open it up to read it immediately. He stood up with the documents and said, "Thank you so much, Mr. Song. My junior brother has you as a friend who is so devoted to him. I believe he is in the spirit of heaven. I will be very relieved to know, so I will go first." Song Xianhua stood up and said respectfully, "This is what I should do. Master Lin, if you need help, please come to me at any time. Our Song family still has a little influence in Jiangcheng. Must." Lin Dong gave Song Xianhua a meaningful look, then turned and left. Come on. Chapter 131 Invitation to Battle. After Lin Dong left Song's house, he returned to the hotel where he was staying, opened the information Song Xianhua gave him, and looked through Xu Feng's information. He naturally didn't believe all of Song Xianhua's words in his heart, but from this conversation, he also figured out some clues. Although the Lin family is a hermit family, they still have some influence in the secular world. After all, cultivation requires a lot of expenses, so the Lin family has people who are responsible for making money in the secular world, and these people are also responsible for collecting information. As the eldest disciple of the Lin family, Lin Dong could of course mobilize these forces easily. When he first came to Jiangcheng, he had no clue. Now that he had the clues provided by Song Xianhua as a breakthrough, he started to investigate directly from Liu Dadan. Sure enough, not long after the investigation, Lin Dong completely understood the whole process of what happened. After all, there were many people who saw what happened on the island with their own eyes at that time, so it was not difficult to investigate it. Lin Dong understands that the truth of the matter is somewhat different from what Song Xianhua said. Although his younger brother Yan Kong was defeated by Xu Feng, he died at the hands of his enemy Liu Dadan in the end. However, Lin Dong didn't have a good relationship with Yan Kong, his junior brother. Yan Kong's death had nothing to do with him. He was just ordered by his teacher to investigate. But now that everything has been investigated, in order to maintain the Lin family's status in the arena, the next thing he has to do is to deal with the two murderers who killed his junior brother. As an ordinary person, Liu Dadan was a big boss in Jiangcheng, but Lin Dong knew that he was going to kill him, but it was a matter of minutes without any difficulty. Instead, he was more interested in the martial artist named Xu Feng. According to the information he inquired about, Xu Feng defeated his junior brother Yan Kong with one move. He is the most clear about the strength of junior brother Yan Kong. He has a great cultivation of inner strength. Even if he is at the peak of inner strength, it is impossible for him to defeat his junior brother with one move. The only ones who can do this step are master-level masters. If this is inferred, doesn't it mean that Xu Feng has the strength of a master-level master? After Lin Dong analyzed it, he felt that the news must have been wrong in the process of dissemination, or the people around Liu Dadan deliberately exaggerated it. For nothing else, he would never believe that Xu Feng would be a master-level master. According to the information, Xu Feng was only in his early 20s. How could he be a master at such a young age? The reason why a master is that his martial arts practice has reached the point of mastery, and he can even be said to be able to establish a sect. It is too difficult to break through to the Grandmaster, which also leads to the fact that there are very few masters. The reason why the Lin family can stand tall in China is because of Lin Nanshan, a master-level master. So no matter how talented you are, it's impossible to break through to the Grandmaster realm in your 20s. Lin Dong believes that the news must be wrong, but it is also true that his junior brother Yan Kong died, so since Xu Feng was able to defeat his junior brother, it shows that he still has a great cultivation of inner strength. But even so, this Xu Feng can be regarded as a genius if he can achieve great internal strength at such a young age. Lin Dong became more and more curious about Xu Feng, and even felt a little hot physically and mentally, because he couldn't wait to see this Xu Feng, and then compete with him in person. He himself is a rare genius in the Lin family, and now he is only a step away from the Grandmaster realm, so he especially enjoys the thrill of defeating other geniuses. After thinking about it, Lin Dong is going to put Liu Dadan aside first, because he can clean up at any time, and he plans to meet Xu Feng first. Since Xu Feng is also a warrior, Lin Dong is going to act according to the rules of the world, so that he can not only defeat Xu Feng, but also save face for the Lin family. Xu Feng has been very leisurely these days. Liu Dadan is in charge of collecting negative information about the Song family, and the money laundering matter is also on the right track. Although that Lu Mengsu is a prospective graduate in the senior year, after the initial adaptation, she is also very handy in making fake accounts. Xu Feng has nothing to do every day, and he will go to the company to chat with her and express condolences to the only employee. However, because the amount involved is too large, it may take a long time to get all the accounts in order. On this day, Xu Feng came home from the company, only to find a letter stuck in the mailbox at the door of the villa. Xu Feng thought that someone had made a mistake with the letter, because he really couldn't think of anyone who would write to him. Now that communication is so convenient, who would write a letter if he has nothing to do? Besides, there are not many people who know the address of his villa. Period. With doubts, he tore open the letter in his hand and read it slowly, only to realize that it was really a letter for himself. And the content of the letter is very strange. It was written to him by a person named Lin Dong. The words in the letter are very proficient. If Xu Feng hadn't been good at ancient literature in high school, he might not be able to understand the letter. Interesting, it's Yan Kong's senior brother who even said he belonged to the Lin family. He asked me to go to the Hongluo temple outside Jiangcheng for a life and death showdown in 3 days' time, and there will be fellow Jiang who witnesses at that time. Xu Feng smiled lightly, and flames slowly emerged from his hands, burning the letter to ashes. After entering the house, Xu Feng no longer took this matter to heart. He should eat and sleep. But 3 days later, on the day agreed in the letter, Xu Feng still drove to Hongluo Temple outside the city early in the morning. Hongluo Temple is a well-known cultural attraction in Jiangcheng. It is said that the temple was built during the Tang dynasty to seek special spirituality. The reason why Xu Feng came to accept the appointment was that he was fearless in his heart. Ever since he fought against Yan Kong, he knew that although there were still warriors in the real world, their strength was inferior to those of the plains he traveled through. Still too childish. At that time, he was only in the acquired state, so he defeated Yan Kong with one move. But now that he is in the late stage of congenital, Xu Feng is confident that there should be no threat to his existence in the real world. But even so, Xu Feng was still a little curious about the Jiang who hidden under the real world today, just pure curiosity, so he still came as promised. Hongluo Temple is built in the mountains, with beautiful mountains and clear waters, and the scenery is particularly beautiful. Although today is not a weekend, there are still many people who come to visit. Xu Feng parked the car at the foot of the mountain, and began to walk up the mountain, heading for the temple. The letter only stated that the location was Hongluo Temple, but did not specify the specific location. There were many tourists in the temple, and Xu Feng was curious about where the other party would compete with him. But he was not in a hurry. Like an ordinary tourist, he visited the ancient buildings in the temple all the way. The temple is built on the mountain as a whole. It stretches from the foot of the mountain to the halfway up the mountain. There are buildings. The whole temple can be said to be very large. All the way to Hual at the highest point, standing on it overlooking the entire valley, but you can still vaguely see that behind this hall, there are other Buddhist halls higher up, but it seems that they are not open to ordinary people. Xu Feng looked at it for a while, and was about to go down the mountain, when a monk in monk's clothes came out from the temple in front of him, came to him, saluted, and proclaimed the Buddha's name, Amitabha. Is Xu Feng the benefactor? Chapter 132. Xu Feng glanced at the monk and said lightly, I am Amitabha Buddha, please come with me as a benefactor. The monk said, turned around and left. Although Xu Feng had doubts in his heart, he still followed the monk. The monk led Xu Feng through the main hall and came to a place behind the main hall that was not open to ordinary people. After detours for a while, he walked to the top of the mountain. The top of the mountain is a platform with a radius of about, feet. There is a small pavilion built near the side of the cliff. In that small pavilion, there were about 4 or 5 people sitting there. The monk brought Xu Feng to the top of the mountain and went down the mountain by himself. Xu Feng glanced at the pavilion, but instead of walking over it, he turned to the side and began to look at the scenery. The wind on the top of the mountain is very strong, and when you reach the highest point, you have a particularly wide view, and you can have a panoramic view of the beautiful scenery in the distance. Just when he was fascinated, a man's voice came from behind, Are you Xu Feng? Xu Feng didn't answer right away, but continued to admire the beautiful scenery in front of him obsessively, and only turned around slowly when he felt completely satisfied. I am. Are you looking for me? 10 meters away from Xu Feng, stood a tall and strong middle-aged man, who was Lindong, the eldest disciple of the Lin family. And beside him, there were 4 people standing separately, one of whom Xu Feng still knew was Yang Xiner, the owner of the Victory Martial Arts Gym. Among the other 3, one was wearing a monk's robe, the other 2, one an old man and a young girl. Lindong looked at Xu Feng carefully, and found that he was indeed very young, and judging from his behavior, he was also very arrogant. Apart from this, he didn't see anything else from him. His face was also full of indifference, and he said lightly, You are courageous, I am afraid that you will not dare to come to this invitation to fight. Xu Feng smiled and said, I didn't intend to come here, but I remembered the beauty of Hongluo Temple, but I haven't seen it for a long time, so I stopped by to have a look. Now it seems that the beauty of the top of the mountain is really good. I have made a worthwhile trip. Lindong narrowed his eyes, and an ugly smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Since you are here, you should be clear about what happened today. I have made it very clear in my letter. As he spoke, he turned and pointed to the 4 people around him, and introduced in turn, This is Mr. Yang Xiner, the owner of the Victory Martial Arts Academy. This is Master Hu Kong, the abbot of Hongluo Temple, and this is old man Jiang Xiner and his granddaughter Jiang Yan. After introducing them, Lindong faced Xu Feng again and said, They are all the top martial arts comrades in Jiangcheng. Today you and I are here to settle the grievances between us. They are the witnesses. Oh? Are they all martial arts seniors? It's been a long time. Xu Feng said and cupped his hands to the 4 of them. The 4 of them returned their salutes one by one, and Jiang Xiner even greeted Xu Feng. And Jiang Yan, who was among them, chuckled lightly and said, I'm not a senior, I'm just out of curiosity, and I'm just following Grandpa to increase my knowledge today, but I can't afford your big gift." Xu Feng smiled lightly, without saying anything, and turned to Lindong. "How are you going to solve it?" "How to solve it is very simple. Yan Kong is a disciple of my Lin family. I have already investigated what happened that day. You have a large part of the responsibility for his death, so today I will seek justice for the Lin family." "Fair." Xu Feng said and laughed twice. "I just did my duty to protect my employer back then, collecting money to eliminate disasters for others, and I don't think there's anything fair about this kind of boring vendetta." The corner of Lindong's mouth twitched, and he said, "Then it's useless to talk, let's use force to compete, but before you start, you should report to the teacher, so that I can notify your teacher to replace you. You collect Taobao. Shiman? What is that? I don't have it, and I don't need it." Xu Feng paused, then sneered, "If there is really someone lying here today, that person will definitely be you." Insanity. Although Lindong had a good self-cultivation, he was still irritated. He stopped talking nonsense, roared, and threw himself towards Xu Feng. Jiang Qixin and the other four had already retreated far away. They were invited to witness today's events. This kind of thing is very common in Jianghu. There are often conflicts between different sects, and they will use this method to resolve them. Naturally, they had all heard of the Lin family's name, but it was only the name of Xu Feng. Except for Jiang Qixin, the other three people present heard it for the first time today. At this moment, seeing that Xu Feng had no background and no sect, and he was so arrogant when he opened his mouth, Abitu Kuang shook his head, chanted the Buddha's name and said, "Amitabha, this benefactor is young and vigorous, but I am afraid that he will not be the match of benefactor Lin in the end." The old man Jiang Yuexiu, who looked like a fairy, touched his beard and said, "This young man is indeed a little ignorant." Then Lindong heard that his cultivation has reached the peak of inner strength, and he is only one step away from the master realm. A step far. "Grandpa, is Lindong really that powerful? Could it be that you are not even his opponent?" Zhang Yihan asked curiously with his eyes wide open. "Silly girl, although Grandpa is also full of internal strength, but after all, he is old, and if we really fight, I'm afraid I really can't match him." Jiang Yuexiu said fondly and stroked her hair. He had high hopes for Zhang Yihan in his heart, because although Zhang Yihan had just completed his full year, he had already started his inner strength, and his future was limitless. So among his offspring, he loves this granddaughter the most, and on this occasion today, he specially brought her to open his eyes. Among the three, only Jiang Qixin, the owner of the Victory Martial Arts Gym, has not commented, because he had seen Xu Feng make a move on Jiangxin Island that day, and in his heart, the two of them might win today. The negative is unpredictable. When the four of them were discussing off the court, Lindong in front had already rushed towards Xu Feng. Lindong's movement speed was very fast, accelerating instantly, so fast that his body turned into a blurred phantom. There was only a distance of more than 10 meters between the two of them, and in an instant Lindong was above Xu Feng and punched out. This punch was so powerful, so swift and fierce that the air seemed to be pierced, making the sound of an explosion. And Xu Feng stood still from the beginning to the end. He was on the edge of a cliff, and there was an abyss below him. Once he fell, he would definitely be lost forever. It wasn't until Lindong's fist was in front of him that Xu Feng raised his hand lightly, and stopped the fist before it was close to him. Zhang Yihan, who was watching, couldn't help but screamed and covered his eyes. Because she knew that Lindong's punch carried huge kinetic energy, coupled with his peak internal strength, Xu Feng couldn't resist it no matter what, and could only be blown off the cliff directly. After waiting for a while, she dared to slowly open her eyes, but she exclaimed again. Because she found that Xu Feng didn't fall, but actually caught Lindong's punch. The two fists and palms intersected, and they were in a stalemate. Chapter 133. Lindong's fist was blocked by Xu Feng's fluttering palm, and he was the most surprised. He found that he really underestimated the person in front of him. However, he was still very confident in his cultivation at the peak of his internal energy. If he failed with one blow, he immediately retracted his fist with luck, and his body flew backwards, preparing to gather strength and then make a second move. It's a pity that Xu Feng didn't give him this chance. When he flew back, Xu Feng's figure was like a gangrene, firmly clinging to him. Xu Feng has already tested Lindong's general strength from the punch he received from Lindong just now. This punch is very powerful, but it is no different from scratching an itch for him. He estimates that Lindong's so-called peak internal strength, at most equivalent to his level around the middle of the day after tomorrow. After figuring out Lindong's level of strength, there's no point in fighting him anymore. After all, although the scenery on the top of the mountain is beautiful, the wind is strong, so finish the fight early and go home early. So Xu Feng didn't hold back anymore. He could use many means now. If he took out the long Quan sword and used the inexplicable sword technique, it is estimated that one move would be enough to kill Lindong in seconds. But the opponent was unarmed after all, and he didn't want to take advantage, so he used the Yanlong palm technique he learned first. As soon as the Yanlong palm was used, the temperature in the air seemed to rise, and Xu Feng's movement speed was far beyond Lindong's comparison. In the process of retreating, Lindong opened his eyes wider and wider, because everything was so unbelievable, especially at the end when he saw the flames lingering on Xu Feng's palm. He was completely dumbfounded. He once vaguely heard from his master Lin Nanshan that when martial arts flourished in ancient times, the top masters could release their inner strength to the outside. Picking flowers and picking leaves could hurt people. And now Xu Feng in front of him, the flames lingering on his palm, and the terrifying high temperature that can be felt before he gets close. Isn't it more terrifying than exposing the internal strength? He no longer had the self-confidence he had at the beginning, and he was not sure that he could receive Xu Feng's palm. In order to save his life, he could only increase his speed to the maximum, and tried his best to dodge Xu Feng. It's a pity that the gap between the two was too great. Xu Feng caught up with him in the blink of an eye, and the palm technique was deployed, attacking from a tricky angle. Seeing that there was no way to avoid it, Lindong gritted his teeth and went all out. He used the Lin family boxing technique he had practiced for many years, and met Xu Feng's palms with both fists. The fists and palms of the two collided again. The air was still for a moment, and then a shocking explosive sound erupted, which was caused by the collision of a large amount of energy. Amidst the sound of the explosion, Lindong's whole body was scorched, and he flew tens of meters away like a piece of catkins, and there was no more sound after landing. And Xu Feng stood on the spot, slowly retracting his palms. His whole body was calm and relaxed, and he was not injured at all. All this seems to take a long time, but in fact it happened in just a moment. The people watching off the field were completely in a state of shock and couldn't recover. Although Hu Kuang is a monk, there are few things that can move him, but his expression at this moment still shows the strong shock in his heart. As for Mr. Zhang Yuanxiu, at this moment, he lost his sense of immortality. His eyes were wide open, and his hand stroking his beard was frozen in midair. Although Jiang Qishan knew that Xu Feng was not simple, this result was far beyond his expectation. From the last move just now, he understood that Xu Feng at this time was much stronger than the last time he saw him on Jiangxin Island, and he was no longer at the same level. If at that time he judged that Xu Feng had a master-level cultivation, then now Xu Feng's strength has exceeded his cognition. He never knew that martial arts could reach such a level. What's even more frightening is that less than half a year has passed since he was a master at the time, and now he has reached his current strength. He no longer dared to think about such a speed of improvement in his cultivation. Zhang Yihan was the youngest, and she was the most exaggerated. She ran towards Xu Feng screaming like a little fan meeting her idol, and shouted as she ran, "You are so amazing! You are so amazing!" But when she ran in front of Xu Feng turned his head and glanced at her lightly. Just this one glance reminded her of the power of Xu Feng's blow just now, so she stopped crying in fright, stuck out her tongue, and flinched. "I didn't dare to speak with my shoulders on my shoulders." Wei Kong and the others, after slowing down, also slowly walked to Xu Feng's side. Xu Feng glanced at them, and said lightly, "Generally, how do you deal with the rules of the world? Can I leave now?" Hu Kuang clasped his hands together and said, "Amitabha, this invitational battle is designed to resolve grievances in the world. Life and death are up to you. Donor, you can go now. As a notary, we will take care of the rest." "That's pretty good," Xu Feng smiled lightly. "Then I'll trouble you. The wind on the top of the mountain is a bit strong. I'm afraid I'll catch a cold, so I'm leaving first." As he spoke, he bowed his hands to several people, then turned and went down the mountain. Seeing that Xu Feng was about to leave, Zhang Yihan caught up with him by a small step, opened his small mouth as if to say something, but in the end he still didn't make a sound. But Jiang Qishan, who was at the side, had a few flashes of light in his eyes, turned to Wei Kong and Zhang Yuanxiu and said, "Master, Brother Zhang, I suddenly remembered that I have something important to do, so I will take a step first. Please both of you, I will treat you to tea next time. Hukong and Zhang Yuexiu didn't think much about it. They and Zhang Qishan were old friends. Zhang Yuexiu said, Go, old Zhang. You are just a cunning. Next time I will kill you well. Zhang Qishan cupped his hands, then turned and left. He walked quickly and hurriedly, and finally caught up with Xu Feng at the foot of the mountain. Stepping forward a few steps, he shouted, Master Xu, please stay. Xu Feng went all the way down. He had already seen the scenery when he went up the mountain, so he didn't stop. He had been out for a long time and was about to go home for dinner. Hearing the voice, he turned around and found that it was Zhang Qishan, so he said, It's the owner Zhang. What's the matter? Zhang Qishan smiled awkwardly, looked around and found that there were many people. He said hesitantly, Master Xu, can I take a step to talk? Xu Feng thought for a while, nodded, and followed him to a remote place. Zhang Qishan coughed, Master Xu, I came here to remind you to be careful of the Lin family. Be careful with the Lin family. Xu Feng was a little puzzled. Is there anyone in the Lin family who is more powerful than him besides this Lin Dong? Zhang Qishan nodded and said, Yes, the Lin family is considered a big family in the whole of China, because their family has a master Lin Nanshan who is a master. And this Lin Dong is the best disciple of their Lin family, and also the most promising breakthrough to the level of a master. Although this time you and him are in a fair duel according to the rules of the world, and there are notarizations from me and Master Hukong, but I am afraid that even if this is the case, the Lin family will not let it go big. Grandmaster. Xu Feng rubbed his chin. Are there many masters in China? Chapter 134 Sense of Crisis. There are very few master-level masters in China, and the master level is too difficult to achieve. Zhang Qishan said and looked at Xu Feng. Of course, the strength displayed by Mr. today may not be weaker than the master. Even if Lin Nanshan is a master, he probably can't do it. Mr. Nei, I just want to remind you. Xu Feng pondered for a while, and he already had a calculation in his heart, and said with a smile, Thank you, Mr. Zhang, for your reminder, then I'll go first. Saying goodbye to Zhang Qishan, Xu Feng left Hongluo Temple and returned home. Although he killed Lin Dong today, Zhang Qishan's warning in the end still lingered in his mind, not that he was afraid of the Grand Master of the Lin family. He believes that his current strength will never be weaker than the master, but when he thinks of his parents and younger sister, they are still ordinary people. Now that he killed Lin Dong by himself, it was equivalent to completely offending the Lin family. If the Lin family acted immorally and took action against his own family, it would be even worse. After thinking for a long time, Xu Feng found that there was no good way to solve it. It was impossible for him to guard his parents all the time, and his younger sister was still studying at school. In the end, Xu Feng could only gamble, because this is still a modern society after all. In front of the state machine, even if those Jianghu people have abilities far beyond ordinary people, they are not to the point of flouting the law. And since the Lin family is one of the few families in China, they should not do such things as hurt other people's family members. After all, they still have to gain a foothold in the Jianghu. However, after all, the safety of his family is still placed on the country's legal system and the benevolence of the enemy. Xu Feng is still very uneasy, but he can't think of other ways for a while. Only now did Xu Feng realize that his strength was still far from enough. If he was strong enough to be fearless of the state machine, he could directly destroy the Lin family in the face of such a hidden threat today, instead of being restrained like he is now. So Xu Feng's heart became tense again. He was actually a little slack during this time, because there was no pressure after all. But today he realized for the first time that the real world is not a paradise. The Jianghu hidden under its surface is still a threat to him, and he has already had entanglements with this Jianghu, so he can only improve his strength as soon as possible. Period. And it has been several months since he returned from Wind and Cloud World last time, during which time he went home for the Spring Festival, and preparations for dealing with the song group are also proceeding in an orderly manner. In this process, I can't intervene. I have to wait for these preparations to be completed before fully activating the net to round up the Song family. So Xu Feng began to prepare to go to the next world, and the faint threat made him dare not waste time like this again. Taking out his mobile phone, Xu Feng checked his current status in the system. Name, Xu Feng. Age, 21. Level, innate late stage. Experience points, 84146/100000. System coin, 15,162. Skills, Zixa Divine Art, 100%, Yanlong Palm, 100%, Dao Weiju, 25%, Borrowing the Universe, 100%, Inexplicable Swordsmanship, 100%, Unlock Apps, WeChat, Kidian Reading, Xiaomi Video. Under his own cultivation, Kyankin has already achieved great success, and he has reached 100% progress without spending system coins to speed up. It's just that I haven't had a chance to try the power of this technique. Now Xu Feng has started to practice Dao Weiju slowly, and he found that his practice is actually quite fast, and it can save system coins. With more than one system coins remaining, you can buy a lucky draw opportunity, which means unlocking a brand new app, which will bring a brand new function. Such a temptation was hard to resist, but in the end Xu Feng did not spend, system coins to buy new lucky draw opportunities after weighing things up. Because the draw is random, there are so many apps in the phone, it is not certain which one will be drawn. If the function that comes out is a tasteless function, then the loss outweighs the gain. Now is the critical period to improve his strength. Xu Feng didn't want to gamble like this. He suppressed his curiosity, and made up his mind. Either wait until the real enemies are completely eliminated, or when the system currency is very sufficient, before considering develop new apps. If you don't draw a new app, then with more than one system coins, the range of worlds you can choose has greatly increased. In the past, although you wanted to go to many worlds, you had to spend too much system coins. This time the system currency is sufficient. Xu Feng has less scruples when choosing the next world, and there are more worlds to choose from. However, there are countless books and countless movies. With so many choices, it becomes difficult to make a decision. What's more, Xu Feng has never read most of them before, so he has to read them one by one to learn more about them. So this selection process is also very time-consuming and energy-consuming. Apart from eating and sleeping every day, Xu Feng began to run his head with all his strength, making various choices and judgments. During this process, he called his parents at home and asked them to pay attention to safety in the near future and try not to go to places with few people to avoid danger. Tang Xining was relatively safer at school, but Xu Feng also warned her. Xu Feng handed over all the company's affairs to Lu Mangsu, and paid her a quarter's salary at a time to let her do it well. During this period of getting along, Xu Feng believes that she should have no problems. All these things have been arranged, and there will be no major problems after leaving for a few months. In the end, Xu Feng chose the next world, which is the world of the novel Zuxian. As a novel about cultivating immortals, Jade Immortals constructs a world of immortals with a high force value, but compared to other later novels, it is relatively low. But no matter how low it was, Xu Feng knew that with his innate late-stage cultivation, he would definitely not be able to please him. But he decided to choose it in the end, because there is a real way to cultivate immortality in it, and to seek immortality in it is the right way to embark on the road to eternal life. In Jade Immortal World, the entire system currency that needs to be spent is 15,000, which is equivalent to Xu Feng's entire net worth now. Before setting off, Xu Feng revisited Zuxian's novel several times. After all, it was the world he would venture into in the future. When everything was ready, Xu Feng opened Zuxian, and the system popped up a prompt: do you want to spend 15,000 system coins to buy this world? This world is an intermediate world, and you can get a free time travel opportunity after purchasing. Huh? Give me a free time travel opportunity. Xu Feng was extremely curious. He didn't know what this meant, so he had to ask the system. It means that you can enter this world for free next time. Oh, well, I see. Xu Feng was naturally very happy in his heart. Originally, according to the system's settings, each purchase only allowed one time travel opportunity. Once you leave, you still need to spend system currency if you want to enter the same world again next time. Just like when he entered the zombie world for the second time, but now that he buys Zuxian, he will be given a free chance, that is, he can enter again next time without spending money. After figuring it out, Xu Feng pressed confirm, and his figure disappeared into the world. Chapter 135 Kaomeo Village. Spatial fluctuations flashed, and Xu Feng's figure appeared on a hillside. Looking around, he found that the place he was in a wilderness. The slope was overgrown with bushes, and he couldn't see anyone in his field of vision. In order to avoid unnecessary troubles, the system tries its best to teleport to places where there are no people, but this time Xu Feng really couldn't help complaining about the system, because he searched for a total of 4 days before seeing the shadow of the person. For 4 days, he lived and slept in the wilderness. He really didn't know if this world was too sparsely populated, or if the system was playing tricks on purpose. However, traveling in the wild these days has also made him realize the difference between this world and other worlds. One is that when he practices Dao Ju every day, he feels that the speed is much faster than in the real world, and the other is that he once beat a few hares to fill his stomach, and found that the energy contained in the rabbit meat is more than the real world. All this shows that the concentration of aura in this world is much stronger than that in the real world, and Xu Feng also understands that he has really come to Zuxian's world. Seeing a figure, he found a small town. The town was small, but it was still better than the wilderness. Xu Feng went into the inn and had a good meal. After eating and drinking enough, he began to inquire about the location of this place. You must know that his main purpose of coming to Zuxian world this time is to enter Qingaimen to learn the most authentic method of cultivating immortals. As for other things, he does not expect it for the time being. In this world, with such a strong concentration of aura, there must be a lot of corresponding treasures of heaven and earth, but Xu Feng knows that accompanied by treasures of heaven and earth must be accompanied by various dangers. With his innate cultivation base, if he wanted to explore the world and find treasures alone, it would be beyond his means. So he thought very clearly, worship Qingaian first, and improve himself well, don't worry about other things. Anyway, there is still a free time travel opportunity. This time you should learn Taoism first, and it won't be too late to come to treasure hunting next time. To worship Qingaian, the most urgent task is of course to find out where you are. Xu Feng asked a few people in the town and soon learned the name of the place. Unfortunately, the name of the place was very common. After hearing it, he couldn't remember such a place in the novel. After thinking about it, he realized that in the original novel, the exact location of Qingaian was not specified, so even if he knew the name of the place, he couldn't judge how far it was from Qingaian. Reluctantly, he had no choice but to ask people in the town if they had heard of Qingaimen, but no one had heard of it. No wonder, Qingaimen is a sect of cultivating immortals. These people are just the most ordinary mortals, how could they have heard of it? As a result, Xu Feng was completely lost. He knew that he was in the world of jade immortals, but he could not enter Qingaimen. I summoned the system in my mind, wanting it to help locate, but the system refused to do anything, and said that it was specially to test Xu Feng, and I had to find a way to solve everything myself. Falling into a dead end, Xu Feng had no choice for a while, but he knew that he had spent, system coins to come to this world, and he absolutely couldn't even find the fairy gate in the end. That would be too shameful. Thinking hard about all the key points in the novel, Xu Feng believes that there is no unparalleled road, and to be precise, the system will not deny him a way out. In the novel, the protagonists Zhang Xianfan and Lin Jinggai were rescued up the mountain by Qingaimen after they were massacred in Kaomiao village, and then became disciples of Qingaimen by the way. Thinking of this, Xu Feng's eyes brightened. Kaomiao village seemed to be the key point for his breakthrough. So he asked the people in the town again, and he heard Kaomiao village, and soon someone told him that there is indeed a village called Kaomiao village in this town, but it is in the most remote part of the town, at the foot of a big mountain. When Xu Feng heard it, he knew that there was definitely something interesting. Kaomiao village was originally located at the foot of Qingaian mountain, but he wondered why these people knew about Kaomiao village but not Qingaimen. After asking, I found out that the people in the town did not call the mountain Qingaian mountain, but Yunwu mountain, because the mountain was shrouded in thick fog all the year round, its height was unknown, and it stretched for thousands of miles. The local people had never seen the mountain before. Its true face, so it is called Yunwu mountain. In this way, Xu Feng became more certain that the so-called Yunwu mountain must be the location of Qingaimen in the novel. After asking the way to Kaomiao village, Xu Feng started to rush there non-stop. He had some expectations in his heart. He didn't know when Kaomiao village was at this time, and how old is the protagonist Zhang Xianfan? As the townspeople said, Kaomiao village was really too remote. Xu Feng walked and asked people, climbed several hills, and finally saw it in a valley. Looking up, he originally thought that since Kaomiao village was at the foot of Qingaian mountain, he should be able to see Qingaian mountain. But looking around, the line of sight is only blocked by a low mountain peak, and the peak behind it is completely invisible. Xu Feng had no choice but to give up, and strolled to the village, but what caught his eyes was a look of a paradise. There are only about 40 families in the village, and the houses are scattered like stars in a valley, and there are farmhouses next to the village. It was already evening, and smoke began to rise from several roofs in the village. It was obvious that some people had started to light a fire for cooking. On the mulberry tree at the head of the village, there were a few roosters crowing, and then the villagers called the chickens to eat. Walking into the village, some children were playing in front of the house. Seeing him as a stranger, they stopped laughing and looked at him curiously. Xu Feng also smiled slightly at these children. After thinking about it, he decided that it would be better to start with the children. So he took out some delicious food from the portable space, distributed them to these children, and asked each of them their names, but unfortunately there was no one he was looking for. Those children were very happy to take his food. They had never eaten such delicate and delicious snacks. Soon some adults in the village also found Xu Feng, and several people surrounded him. One of the old men asked why Xu Feng came to their village. Xu Feng had no choice but to say that he was lost, and only after walking for several days did he see their village. After walking for several days, Xu Feng looked like he was in the dust, and the villagers were very simple, so he didn't doubt his words at all. The old man seemed to be the head of the village, and without further ado, he invited Xu Feng to stay at their house at night. Xu Feng declined for a while, and finally followed the village chief's house, otherwise he would have to sleep in the wilderness at night. Although he is the head of the village, his house is the same as that of most people in the village, very simple. The head of the village has a son in his family, and the son gave birth to 2 children. When the family saw Xu Feng, they were all very hospitable. They brought out all the best things in the house to entertain him, and everything made Xu Feng feel very sorry. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 136. 7 years ago, I rested at the village head's house for one night. The next day, the village head's son was going out to do farm work early in the morning. The village head was old and frail, so he rested at home. Without saying a word, Xu Feng picked up the hoe and went to the fields with the village head's son to do farm work. He was originally from the countryside and was very skilled in these farm tasks. Of course, the village chief's family tried their best to stop him, saying that he was a guest, so how could he be allowed to work? But finally, under Xu Feng's persuasion, they finally agreed. The reason why Xu Feng wanted to work with the village chief's son was because he had eaten the village chief's family for nothing, so he felt sorry and wanted to do some work to make up for it. Another thing is that during dinner last night, during the conversation, he found that the village chief's son was a little stupid. Xu Feng wanted to use this opportunity to work with the village head's son to get some words out of his mouth. When the work was in full swing, Xu Feng coughed and said, "Brother Anu, let me ask you something." The village chief's son, Anu, smiled honestly and said, "If you have anything to ask, just ask." Anu, know and will definitely tell you. It's like this, Nu, is there a kid named Zhang Xiafen in your village? Zhang Xiafen. Anu stopped what he was doing, looked up at the sky and pondered, Zhang Xiafen, why is this name so familiar? Really? So there is really a child named Zhang Xiafen in your village? Xu Feng looked excited and expectant. Ah, I remembered, there really is someone named Zhang Xiafen. Great, how old is this Zhang Xiafen now? Xu Feng asked nervously. It seems to be 3 years old, Anu said and shook his head again. No, it seems to be 4 years old. When I go home, I will help you go to Uncle Zhang's house and ask. No need. Xu Feng hurriedly stopped him. I'm just asking casually. Don't take it to heart, Anu. Let's continue to work and go home early when we are done. But at this time Xu Feng felt very bitter in his heart. He was indeed very pleasantly surprised to find Zhang Xiafen, but what he never expected was that Zhang Xiafen was only 3 years old. And if he remembers correctly, the village massacre in Kaomidao village in the novel probably happened when Zhang Xiafen was around 10 years old. In other words, he came 7 years before the beginning of the story in the novel. Originally, he planned to use Kaomidao village to pretend to be dead in the village when it was massacred, so as to sneak into King Ainman. In the novel, the disciples of King Ain who happened to pass by would take the surviving Zhang Xiafen and Lin Jingyu to King Ain, and even the mad second Uncle Wang would be taken to King Ain by them, so as long as he was not dead, he would be taken to Qingyuan too. This was originally the most convenient way to enter Qingyuan that Xu Feng thought of, but now it is completely shattered. He never expected that the system would transport him to the world he traveled to 7 years ago, and such a thing had never happened before. Sister System, do you have to explain it to me? What should I do if you have made such an oolong? Xu Feng complained. It's normal. The error is already very small. In the world of Xianxia, time is measured in 10,000 years. It is not easy for me to control the error within 7 years. The system explained solemnly. Me? There is no such thing as you. You teleported me to 7 years before the beginning of the story. Then all the plots I am familiar with in the novel no longer exist. How can I survive? I strongly request to retransmit. Protest is ineffective. You. In the end, Xu Feng had no choice but to compromise. There is another way, that is, he exits the world of Jade Immortals now, and then uses the free opportunity given to him to re-enter. But in this way, it is equivalent to wasting an opportunity, which is, system coins. In the end, Xu Feng still did not choose to quit. Although the time is now 7 years earlier than the beginning of the story, but as the system said, this is the world of Xianxia. After 7 years, apart from the fact that the protagonists have not grown up, other things little has changed. The first peaks of Qingyuan must still be those, and the righteous and evil sects must not have changed, so it is not too bad. Anyway, his trip is only to practice Taoism. After thinking about it like this, he slowly regained his balance, but in this way, he could no longer use the slaughter of Kaomiao village to enter Qingyuan, and had to start thinking of other ways. Thinking that Kaomiao village is at the foot of Qingyuan mountain, those people in the town have never heard of Qingyuan. Maybe people in the village know Qingyuan? With the thought of giving it a try, Xu Feng asked, Brother and you, let me ask you one more thing. Have you heard of Qingyuan? Albatron Gate. Oni wiped the sweat off his face. I've never heard of it. Although Xu Feng had expected such a result, he still couldn't help being disappointed. However, I haven't heard of Qingyuan sect. I do know of Qingyuan temple. There is a Taoist temple on the nearby mountain. People in the village often collect firewood and sell it to them. Really? That's great. Xu Feng was really overjoyed. He was almost sure that the Qingyuan temple must be the Qingyuan sect. After finishing work and returning to the village chief's house, Xu Feng said that he wanted to take a stroll in the village, and the village chief asked Aniu to accompany him. Let Ani lead him to Zhang Xiaofen's house. Before he entered, he saw a 3 or 4-year-old child sitting at the door, wiping his tears. He didn't know what wronged him. Xu Feng stepped forward and handed him a lollipop, and then asked with a smile, Little friend, what's your name? The child took the candy, stuffed it into his mouth, tasted it, immediately stopped crying, stared at Xu Feng with wide eyes, and said softly, My name is Zhang Xiaofen. Okay, good boy. Xu Feng patted his head, straightened up, personally confirmed Zhang Xiaofen's age. He was completely given up. At this time, a woman came out of the room, glanced at the candy in Zhang Xiaofen's hand, turned to Xu Feng and said, Aniu, who is this young master? Aniu introduced Xu Feng to him, and when the woman heard that Xu Feng was a guest, she wanted him to stay for dinner. Of course Xu Feng refused, and after taking a last look at the mother and son, he followed Aniu back to the village chief's house. There was only one way to think about it. Xu Feng confessed to the village chief that the reason why he got lost was because he wanted to find Qingyuan temple in the mountains here, and he wanted to learn Taoism from the people in the Taoist temple. A gleam of wisdom flashed in the village head's eyes, as if he had expected that Xu Feng was not simply lost. Seeing that Xu Feng revealed his purpose at this moment, he was not prepared to make things difficult, and told him that the person in view would collect firewood every half a month. In 3 days' time, we will take a batch of firewood and give them to them. Then you can go with us, and the rest will depend on your own destiny. Thank you, village chief. Xu Feng said gratefully from the bottom of his heart. Chapter 137 Introduction. The next day, Xu Feng was woken up by the village chief early in the morning, carried a bundle of firewood, followed Aniu and several young people in the village, and walked towards the mountain near Kaomiao village. The mountain road is difficult, and everyone carries more than 100 caddies of firewood on their backs, but everyone's speed is not slow. Aniu and those villagers, they have been doing this kind of work all year round, and they have already been trained, while Xu Feng is due to his innate late-stage cultivation, so it is really trivial to carry such a small thing. Climbing up the mountain road, There are dense forests all the way, the joyful calls of various birds in the woods, the fresh air between the mountains and the full aura, all of which make people not tired at all. After climbing more than 1,000 meters, I arrived at a platform. This is a large rock, extending out, and there is a cliff below. There is a small pavilion on the rock, which has been in disrepair for a long time. When Aniu and the villagers arrived at the pavilion, they put down the firewood and stopped walking. Xu Feng had to put down the firewood on his back and asked suspiciously, "Brother Aniu, are we here to rest?" Aniu shook his head honestly, "No, every time we do business with a Taoist chief, he will probably come if we wait a little longer." Hearing this, Xu Feng confirmed in his heart that the so-called Qingyan temple was Qingyan. Even the place of the transaction was chosen in such a place where nothing could be seen. Obviously, they didn't want to expose their identities to these ordinary villagers. After waiting for a while, a person came out from the top of the mountain covered in clouds and mists. He was wearing Xingyi, and his age was unexpectedly young. He looked like he was only in his 20s. As soon as Aniu saw him, he took a step forward and said with a simple smile, "Dao Zhang, take a look at the firewood this time." Taoist Zhang led out of him, his eyes swept over the firewood on the ground, then his eyes slipped among several people, and finally settled on Xu Feng's face. A trace of doubt flashed in his eyes, and he asked, "Aniu, is this brother also from your village? Why haven't I seen it before?" He is a guest of our house. He just came here a few days ago, and he came to help deliver firewood today. That's it, this is the firewood money for this time, collect it, and then you can go. Aniu accepted the money, thanked him, and took a few people down the mountain. Not long after walking, Xu Feng pulled Aniu over and whispered to him that he was going back to the pavilion to find the Taoist leader, and asked them to go back first. Before this matter happened, Xu Feng had already discussed it with Aniu. Aniu didn't say much, patted Xu Feng on the shoulder, and continued down the mountain with the others. But Xu Feng immediately turned around and started running towards the pavilion. He was afraid that the Dao Zhang would leave. He rushed to the pavilion, but saw from a distance that the Taoist priest was kicking the firewood off the cliff with a bundle of feet. He just kicked off the last bundle of firewood, but when he heard footsteps, he turned around and saw that he was a stranger among the villagers just now, and his expression became a little ugly. "What are you doing back?" Xu Feng was not too surprised when he saw this scene. He had suspected that Qingyan, a sect of cultivating immortals, would have any use for these mortal firewood. Now it seems that he probably guessed right. This is just an excuse for Qingyan to help Kaomiao village, to give some money to the villagers in the name of collecting firewood. As for the so-called Dao Zhang in front of him, no matter how Xu Feng looked at him, he didn't feel any threat from him. He guessed in his heart that this person was probably just a handyman disciple of Qingyan sect. But no matter who the other party is, if you want to enter Qingyan, you can only go through this person at present. So he changed a smile and said, "Haha, Taoist priest, I am actually here to find you. Looking for me? Do you have anything to do?" Zhang Dao Cheng was obviously a little impatient. Xu Feng didn't seem to see his face. He still smiled and said, "Master Dao, in fact, I know you are from the Qingyan sect. I have admired immortals since I was a child, and I finally found out about Qingyan after a lot of hard work. Take me to Qingyan." After the Taoist Zhang heard it, his eyes seemed to be seeing a ghost, and he looked Xu Feng up and down again, and suddenly laughed. You want to join me, Qingyan?" Taoist Zhang's name is Zhang Bao, and he is indeed just as Xu Feng guessed, a handyman disciple of Qingyan sect. He thought that he had worked so hard for so many years, but he couldn't become a formal disciple. The village man in front of him, not talking about qualifications, but only saying that he was so old, still wanted to peek into the gate of heaven? After laughing for a while, shaking his head, Zhang Bao walked up the mountain, apparently ignoring Xu Feng. Of course Xu Feng was enraged in his heart. When had he been looked down upon so much? But he still had someone to ask for, so he couldn't turn his back on him. Stepping forward quickly, I stopped in front of Zhang Bao. "Master Dao, I know this is a bit overwhelming, but this has really been my long-cherished wish for many years. I just ask you to recommend me, Master Dao." Zhang Bao was a little annoyed, and scolded, "You are really overestimating your abilities. Qingyan accepts disciples, and the most important thing is qualifications, and the other is age. You don't meet these two, and you still want to eat swan meat? Get out of the way quickly." As he said that, he stretched out his hand and pushed Xu Feng lightly. Although it was very light, he thought it was enough to make the villager in front of him fall into shit and let him learn a lesson. Xu Feng saw Zhang Bao's push, which seemed to be gentle, but actually contained great strength, but he didn't dodge, but pretended not to understand the strength of the blow, and stood there dumbfounded. The palm touched the body, and the huge force entered the body, but it was like a mud cow entering the sea, without any fluctuation. Xu Feng's body didn't even shake, and he was still smiling there. As a result, Zhang Bao was startled, his eyes widened in horror. He couldn't believe what he saw. He gritted his teeth and increased his strength, until finally he exerted all his strength, but Xu Feng was still helpless. Impossible, it's impossible. Zhang Bao withdrew his palm and shouted, although he is only a handyman disciple, his cultivation level is not weak anymore. He exerted all his strength. The strength in his hands is not less than 1,000 caddies, but he can't do anything to the person in front of him. Master Dao, what were you doing just now? Xu Feng asked foolishly, pretending not to know anything. No, nothing. Zhang Bao looked at Xu Feng. His attire and expression all showed that this person was really just an ordinary villager, so there was only one possibility. The person in front of him was born with divine power. His eyes began to roll, thinking of the entrance trials of the sect, one of which was to test strength. Maybe this person is really a different kind, and it might not be possible to pass the entrance trials? In this world, it is extremely difficult to find talents for cultivation. Among one people, there may not be one who is suitable for cultivating immortals. Therefore, if a qualified disciple is recommended, the rewards in the sect will be quite generous. Thinking of recommending this person, I will be rewarded if I succeed, and even if I fail, I will have no loss. I already have a calculation in my heart, and said, okay, I can introduce you to the door. Home from school today, on the train, the update is a bit late, sorry. In addition, I had a fight with a train conductor on the train today, and the mood was really beautiful. Chapter 138 Trial. Really? That would be wonderful. Xu Feng didn't care why Zhang Bao suddenly changed his attitude, as long as he could successfully get himself into Qingyuan. Then follow me. As Zhang Bao said, he walked up the mountain first, and Xu Feng followed him closely. The pavilion was originally located at a height of more than 1,000 meters, but following Zhang Bao, he continued to walk up, only to find that the entire mountain was unbelievably high, and it had already entered the range of clouds and mist. The higher it goes up, the higher the concentration of aura, and Xu Feng feels very comfortable all over. Both Zhang Bao and Xu Feng walked very fast. Although they were climbing a mountain, they seemed to be walking on flat ground, but even so, they still walked for about 2 hours. Okay, here we are, you wait here first, I'll report back to the door first, and someone will come to pick you up then. As Zhang Bao said, he took out a J token from his bosom, pressed it in front of him, and then the figure suddenly disappeared. Hey! Wait! Before Xu Feng could react, he chased up and wanted to catch Zhang Bao. He stretched out his hand in front of him, but he felt a strong rebounding force, which directly sent him flying. This is? Could it be the legendary enchantment? Xu Feng murmured in shock. He was able to bounce himself away even though there was nothing in front of him. Then he tried a few more times, but they were all bounced away without exception. Even the last time he used too much force, he was slightly injured by the rebound force. Xu Feng also gave up because of this, and could only stay outside the barrier, sitting down and waiting quietly, praying in his heart that Zhang Bao would not let him go. But this time, he waited until the next morning. Xu Feng didn't know how he survived the cold and hopeless night last night. When the sun rose, a young man finally came out from the barrier. This young man was not Zhang Bao, but he was wearing a blue shirt. From the moment he appeared, Xu Feng felt the threat from him, which was much greater than Zhang Bao's. Even he felt that he was definitely not the opponent of the young man in front of him. When Xu Feng was looking at the young man in blue, the young man was also looking at him. Are you the gifted person that Zhang Bao said? Ah, it's me. Xu Feng felt a little embarrassed. Is he really talented? The blue-clothed youth smiled slightly. My name is Li Wen, and I'm here to take you to the trial this time. By the way, don't you know your name yet? My name is Xu Feng. Okay, let's go now. Li Wen, a young man in blue, suddenly appeared in front of him with a light blue sword. The sword was of normal size at first, but after he made a sword art, it began to grow rapidly, and finally became 10 feet long. The size, floating in the air about 2 feet above the ground, It was the first time Xu Feng saw this method, and he was shocked, but more excited, because he could learn it in the near future. Li Wen jumped onto the sword lightly, and then said to Xu Feng, "Come up." Hearing this, Xu Feng mobilized his inner strength and landed on the sword lightly, without even shaking the sword. Li Wen's expression changed slightly, but he didn't say anything. He pinched the sword formula with his hand, and the sword began to lift into the air, then quickly broke through the clouds and flew forward. Fijian's speed was very fast, and the fierce wind blew on his face, causing great pain. However, Li Wen seemed to test Xu Feng by deliberately driving Fijian up and down, left and right. But no matter how bumpy the flying sword was, Xu Feng stood firmly on the flying sword and remained silent. Passing through thousands of mountains and ravines, after a quarter of an hour, the flying sword landed and stayed in a small valley. "Okay, this is the place of trial, you go in, I will wait for you here," Li Wen said and looked at Xu Feng with a smile. "From this point of view, you are indeed different from ordinary people. I believe you will pass, and soon we will become fellow students." "Thank you, Brother Ji Yan." Xu Feng cupped his hands, turned around and walked into the valley. The valley was shrouded in a thin layer of mist, and it was impossible to see clearly from 100 meters away. He didn't know what kind of test would be inside, but he thought that since it was a test for beginner disciples, there shouldn't be any danger, so he didn't care much about it. After walking for a while, everything was normal, but gradually, Xu Feng felt that his body was getting heavier and heavier. At first he thought it was his own illusion, but the further he walked inside, the heavier his steps became. Looks like the test has begun. This is a formation similar to changing the gravity. The further a person walks inside, the greater the resistance they will encounter. If it is an ordinary person, it may be difficult to move at the back, and every step is like 1,000 caddies. But these are just trivial things to Xu Feng. His whole body's skills are flowing. Even though he is under more and more gravity, he still walks as if he is walking on flat ground. After walking for a quarter of an hour, at the end, Xu Feng felt that each step seemed to have a gravity about 10 times his own body weight, and even he felt a little strenuous. But after taking another step, it seemed that he had stepped out of the formation, and suddenly all the gravity disappeared, and his body suddenly returned to normal, and he felt so light that he could fly. The pressure disappeared. It seemed that the first test had been passed, but the exit was still not seen, and the front was still shrouded in fog. Xu Feng was not in a hurry, and continued to walk. After a while, he walked into a cloud of mist again, and slowly felt the scenery around his body began to change. It began to become full of singing birds and fragrant flowers, and colorful falling flowers. Among the flowers and willows, a few beautiful women with half-untied veils came out. Their faces were charming, and they entangled them with charming smiles. Xu Feng couldn't dodge and was entangled by them. He was extremely embarrassed in his heart, but he couldn't help but blush and heartbeat. These women are not only beautiful, but also active. Each and every one of them is the partner that men dream of, and there are so many of them now. Xu Feng was about to sink into it, but the last trace of clarity in his mind kept reminding him that something was wrong. Finally, before he fell completely, he finally remembered what was wrong. How could there be so many beauties in this valley in the wilderness? Thinking of this, Xu Feng was startled, and realized that he had unknowingly fallen into the trap. He bit the tip of his tongue hard, and the severe pain made his brain tremble. Suddenly, the stunning beauties half undressed burst like bubbles one by one, and the spring scenery also disappeared, and the mist-shrouded appearance returned to the surrounding area. Xu Feng knew that he had passed another level. He took a deep breath, but he didn't dare to underestimate him anymore, and continued to move forward. But within 2 steps, the fog in front of him suddenly disappeared completely, and one person laughed. "Congratulations for passing the entry test." Xu Feng looked. The person who spoke was Li Wen, and the place he was in was already Taniguchi, so he had turned around unconsciously and came back. Chapter 139 Apprenticeship. After passing the test, Li Wen controlled the flying sword, soared into the sky, and flew towards the highest peak in the mountains. After a while, it landed on the top of the mountain. The top of the mountain is a large platform with squares and various buildings. "Come with me." Li Wen put away his long sword and walked ahead first. Xu Feng hurriedly followed, and asked doubtfully, "Senior Brother Li, what is the name of this mountain? Who are we going to see now?" "This is Tongshan Peak, the main peak where our sect leader is. I, King Ian, have 7 main peaks, namely Tongshan Peak, Longshao Peak, Fenghu Peak, Chaoyong Peak, Luoxia Peak, Big Bamboo Peak, and Small Bamboo Peak. And the ones you want to follow me to meet now are the sect master and the heads of the peaks. Your talent is so high, it is estimated that the uncles of the heads of the peaks will all be rushing to get you, haha. Ah, thank you brother for clarifying the confusion. Xu Feng felt a little uneasy. The chiefs of each peak were all people with great supernatural powers, and he had to perform well later. Thinking of this, as Li Wen walked step by step, the square was surprisingly large. After walking for a long time, he was still at the edge of the square, and couldn't help asking, Senior Brother Li, why don't we just fly the flying sword to the entrance of the main hall and walk instead? Li Wen smiled softly. That's because there is a regulation in the gate. Except for the masters and uncles, when they come to the square, other people are not allowed to use flying swords. They have to walk to show respect for the master. Oh, I got it. Xu Feng walked and looked at it, and found that the scenery here is really beautiful, just like the legendary fairyland. The ground of the square is entirely paved with white marble, which is shining brightly. At a glance, it makes people feel small. The white clouds in the distance, like a veil, are floating under your feet. In the center of the square, a huge copper tripod is placed every tens of feet, divided into 3 rows, 3 in each row, a total of 9, arranged in a regular manner. From time to time, light smoke would rise from the tripod, and the taste would be clear but not scattered. Li Wen introduced to Xu Feng while walking, this is the Sea of Clouds among the 6 sceneries of Qinghai. The scenery is not bad. Xu Feng nodded and said, it's really not bad, like a fairyland. Looking far ahead, at the end of the square in the distance ahead, behind the misty clouds, there seemed to be something shining. Xu Feng quickened his pace and walked forward. Gradually, there was the sound of water, and occasionally there were 1 or 2 strange thunderous sounds, which came from nowhere. The closer you get, the cloud is like a gentle fairy, gently surrounding you, gradually pulling away the vague veil, revealing a clear face. At the end of the square, there is a stone bridge, with no seat or pier, which rises across the sky, with one end on the square, stretching straight up obliquely, into the depths of the white clouds, like a dragon leaping into the sky, with aloof and arrogant aura. There is a slight sound of water, and under the sunlight, the whole bridge emits colorful colors, like a rainbow in the sky, falling into the world, gorgeous and beautiful. Xu Feng was deeply attracted by such beautiful scenery. Li Wen smiled and introduced, this is also one of the 6 scenic spots, Hong Chao. After stepping on the stone bridge, Xu Feng realized that the water flowed continuously on both sides of the bridge, which was extremely clear, but the middle part was not dripping. Sunshine shines on the bridge through the clouds, and is refracted by the water flow, forming a gorgeous rainbow, and under the bridge is the bottomless abyss, which is frightening to look at. This Hong Chao is very tall and long. Walking on it, I feel that the white clouds on the left and right are gradually sinking to my feet. After walking for a while, the white clouds are getting thinner, and I actually walked out of the sea of clouds. And directly in front of it is the main hall of Qinghai Temple, Yuking Hall, on the top of Tongshan Peak. The green hills are emerald, and the temples are majestic. The Yuking Palace is located on the top of the peak, surrounded by clouds, and sometimes there are few auspicious cranes flying by with long calls, circling in the air, like a fairyland, which is admirable. Walk down the Hong Chao and come to the edge of the pool. A spacious stone step leads up from the edge of the pool to the gate of Yuking Hall. The pool water is green, clear as a mirror, and the shadows of people and mountains are clearly visible. Xu Feng knew that this was the Lingzun sleeping in the blue clouds, a water unicorn that had lived for thousands of years in the book. When Zhang Xianfan went to Yuking Palace for the first time, he was startled by Lingzun. But as Li Wen walked through the pool, the spiritual venerable inside did not move. Before coming to the majestic hall, I saw that the door was wide open, and there was plenty of light inside. In front of the god's seat, on the main hall, there are 7 large sandalwood chairs, 3 on the left and 3 on the left and 1 at the front, on which sits the heads of the peaks. Xu Feng didn't have time to take a closer look, so he bowed down with Li Wen, and Li Wen said in his mouth, I have brought Xu Feng, who has passed the trial. A majestic old man sitting in the middle of the head, with snow-white hair, but no wrinkles on his face, said, get up, you can go down first. Yes. Li Wen then exited the hall. Xu Feng stood up and was alone in the hall, facing the 7 legendary characters in front of him. He felt a little uneasy. He mustered up the courage to look at them one by one, and found that everyone had a terrifying power, which was completely unmatched by him. Among the 7 people, there was only one woman, who was in her early 30s from the looks of her face. She had a beautiful face, but her pretty face was frosty, with an expression of not getting close to strangers. Xu Feng understood that this person should be the first Xu master of Xu Feng. In addition, sitting next to him was a fat man with a kind face and a figure that stood out from the crowd. Xu Feng also recognized it at a glance. He was definitely the first field of the Big Bamboo Peak. Tian Buyi noticed that Xu Feng was looking at him, and smiled slightly on Xu Feng's fat face. Daoxuan, the leader above, continued to speak. Your name is Xu Feng, right? Although this year is not the year for me to open my Qingyuan door to accept disciples, but since you have passed the test, you can become my Qingyuan disciple. Daoxuan said with a slight smile, and said to the other 6 people, everyone saw Xu Feng's performance through the sky-gazing mirror just now. Who wants to accept him as a disciple? After Xu Feng listened blankly, he felt a little nervous. He was afraid that no one would choose him. But to his surprise, as soon as the headmaster Daoxuan finished speaking, 2 people said at the same time, I want it. Xu Feng took a sneak peek, and found that one of them was actually Tian Buyi, while the other, sitting on Daoxuan's hands, had a majestic and righteous face, and his aura was second only to Daoxuan. Tian Buyi laughed, and said, Senior brother Kang Song, you have a lot of talents in Longshao Peak, why don't you give this one to me at Big Bamboo Peak? It turned out to be the first Kang Song Taoist of Longshao Peak. Xu Feng was suddenly surprised. After hearing Tian Buyi's words, Kang Song also smiled lightly. Junior brother Tian, what you said is wrong, my Longshao Peak is indeed full of talents, but no matter how many talented disciples there are, I welcome them, there is no way too many it makes sense. Besides, Junior brother Tian, even if I give you a talented disciple, I'm afraid you won't be able to teach him well, haha. Tian Buyi heard the ridicule, his face turned livid, he clenched his hands tightly, but he didn't say anything. Seeing that the 2 men were at war, Daoxuan laughed and said, you 2 juniors, Mojang, don't hurt your friendship. How about this, let Xu Feng choose for himself. As he said that, he looked at Xu Feng and said with a smile, Xu Feng, now both Longshao Peak and Dazhu Peak belong to you, so you can choose for yourself. Xu Feng has been standing in the middle of the hall, looking at everything. He already has some calculations in his heart. Now he heard Daoxuan's words, he cupped his hands and said, report to the master, I choose Dazhu Feng. Chapter 140. Hearing Xu Feng's choice, a bright smile appeared on Tian Buyi's chubby face, while the real Longshao Feng Kang Song, whose face was supposed to be a winning one, slowly disappeared at this moment. Staring at Xu Feng in disbelief, his face was covered with frost. Xu Feng seemed to have not seen it, and selectively ignored it. It is said that the resources of Longshao Peak must be much better than that of Dazhu Peak, but Xu Feng is very clear about Kang Song's personality. Maybe choose Longshao Feng. Reverend Daoxuan smiled slightly, since you have made your choice, you will be a disciple of Dazhu Peak from now on, so everyone should leave today. After speaking, he stood up first and left, and the others also stood up. Tian Buyi walked in front of Xu Feng, looked him up and down, and said with satisfaction, very good, very good. Xu Feng looked at Tian Buyi, felt a sense of kindness in his heart, and shouted, Master. Well, follow me back to Dazhu Feng. Tian Buyi went out of the main hall, summoned his accompanying sword Qian, and brought Xu Feng Yujian to the Big Bamboo Peak. Looking at Dazhu Feng from the air, you can see that most of it is shrouded in mist, and some buildings on the top of the mountain are looming. After getting off the flying sword, Tian Buyi led Xu Feng directly to the main hall of the Big Bamboo Peak. After a while, several disciples from Dazhu Feng came out one after another, lined up, tall or short, strong or thin. A total of 6 people looked at Xu Feng curiously. Finally, a beautiful woman came out from the inside. She looked to be in her 30s, and she was graceful. Standing beside her was a little girl, about 4 or 5 years old, with delicate features, and a pair of bright and watery eyes. Arousing affection. After everyone arrived, Tian Buyi introduced Xu Feng to them, and his wife Zuru and everyone including Song Darren got to know Xu Feng one by one. That little girl is Tian Linger, Tian Buyi's daughter. She is only less than 5 years old at the moment, and her big eyes are also staring at Xu Feng curiously. After getting acquainted with everyone, Tian Buai let Xu Feng first salute to the first portrait of Xu Feng in the main hall. After saluting, Xu Feng knelt down and kowtowed 9 heads to Tian Buai and Xiru. Tian Buai was smiling all over his face. His big bamboo valley has been dying of talents, so he was very happy to accept such a talented student as Xu Feng today. Although Xu Feng is older, he is still confident that he can train this disciple well. That night, above the lobby, the brothers from Xu Feng gathered together and had a lively dinner, which was regarded as a cleansing for Xu Feng. As Xu Feng ate, he really felt that everyone was like a family, and he was grateful for his correct choice. After the meal, Tian Buai asked Song Darren to take Xu Feng to his residence, and explained that starting tomorrow, he would personally teach Xu Feng Taoism. Xu Feng was naturally very happy when he heard it, but he remembered that when Zhang Xianfen was getting started, Tian Buai only let his big disciple Song Darren teach it on his behalf. After thanking the master, Xu Feng followed his senior brother Song Darren to the residence. Song Darren was a very kind person. When he took Xu Feng to the residence, he enthusiastically introduced every detail of Xu Feng. Junior brother, this will be your home from now on. We are all a family. If you have anything to do, just call me. Xu Feng smiled gratefully. Thank you, senior brother. How long have you been with master? Song Darren touched his head and smiled honestly. I have been with master for 7 or 8 years, but I am not talented enough, and my progress has been too slow. Where, big brother, you are very powerful, but you are too humble. Arriving at the residence, it was a very simple room. Song Darren said, Junior brother, you will live here from now on. We cultivators don't talk about enjoyment, so everything is very simple. You have to get used to it slowly. Okay, thank you, big brother. It was really late when Song Darren was sent away. Xu Feng tidied up and lay on the bed. Thinking that he was really lying on the big bamboo peak at this moment, he knew that he had succeeded. The next thing to do is to seriously settle down and learn the most authentic Taoism. Early the next morning, after breakfast, Tian Buai brought Xu Feng to the back hall, sat down, took a sip of tea, and began to teach Taoism. Let Xu Feng sit down at the table, first teach him how to meditate, then roughly talk about the human body's meridians and the movement of essence, and finally pass on the first level practice method of Tai Chi Zhuan Qing Dao. After passing it on, Tian Buai carefully introduced to Xu Feng the general situation of practicing this method in Qingyuan sect. Tai Chi Zhuan Qing Dao is the root of all kinds of miraculous arts of Qingyuan sect. It was comprehended by the patriarch Qing Yunzi in an unknown ancient scroll 2,000 years ago. It is an unsurpassed Taoism that surpasses the heavens and the earth, and is unparalleled in mysteries. Taiji Zhuan Qing Dao has 3 realms, Yuking, Shanking, and Taking. In Qingyuan sect, there are nearly 1,000 people, but those who can break through the Yuking realm and enter the Shanking realm, headed by the senior brother Daoxuan, are no more than 10 people. Just getting started. But with only a few dozen people, my Qingyuan sect is one of the most powerful and deepest sects in cultivation today. As for the legendary Taking realm, it is said that only Patriarch Qingai, a rare genius born in the past, has been able to cultivate it. Tian Buai said a lot in one breath. Xu Feng has been listening carefully. This information is very important. He is very curious about how strong this Jade Qing realm will be after cultivation. Seeing Xu Feng listening fascinatedly, Tian Buai couldn't help talking about it, talking eloquently. The practice process of Taiji Zhuan Qing Dao becomes more and more difficult as it goes on. Most people in the first level of Yuking realm can complete it in the first year, but when it starts later, the difficulties will appear. After 5 years of practice, the third level is even more of a watershed. Those with slightly lower aptitude will stay here for the rest of their lives, and it is not uncommon for those with better qualifications to practice for 5 or 60 years. Xu Feng was not intimidated by these statistics. He believed that with his talent, it would definitely not take 3 to 50 years. Tian Buai saw Xu Feng's face remained unchanged, smiled slightly, and continued talking. The main practice method of Taiji Zhuan Qing Dao is roughly taught at the 3rd level. In the future, it will be more dependent on the level of aptitude and self-cultivation. Disciples and teachers with advanced practice may give some pointers, and that is only an individual. Let the disciples avoid some detours. Of course, I believe in Fenger's aptitude. Given time, it's not a problem to cultivate to the top 3 levels. You can come to me anytime if you have any questions. Xu Feng quickly got up and saluted. Thank you, Master, I will work hard to practice. Tian Buai nodded in satisfaction, and said, after the third level, those who have cultivated Taiji Zuan King Dao to the fourth level of Yuking realm will have the foundation of 10,000 Dharma, and can start to practice other thaumaturgy and magical methods, as well as cultivate their own magic weapons at the same time. As far as magic treasures and secret weapons are concerned, they have a long history. In myths and legends, most of the gods in the sky have their own magic weapons, which are extremely powerful in the human world. It is also very powerful for those who practice Taoism to master the creation of the world with it. I will give you a detailed introduction to these later when I have time. Do you have any questions for Master? Xu Feng hesitated for a moment, but still asked, Master, what level have they cultivated to? Well, among your senior brothers, Darren has the deepest practice. He has cultivated Taiji Zuan King Dao to the fourth level of Yuking realm, followed by the fourth brother He, who has cultivated to the third level. As for the second child Wu Dai, the third child Zhang Dali, the fifth child Lu Daxin, and the sixth child Zhu Dishu, they were all struggling on the second floor of the Yuking realm. Xu Feng nodded, and said, the senior brothers are all very good. I have to practice quickly so that I can catch up with them. Tian Buai said, it's good that you have this idea. To cultivate is to calm down and endure loneliness. Then you go down first. Chapter 141 Little Lolita. On the big bamboo peak, the back mountain is a whole piece of bamboo forest. And everyone's buildings are in the front peak. The largest and most important is the main hall, Shaojing Hall, where Tian Buai, his wife and daughter live in the back hall. Next to the Shaojing Hall is the corridor courtyard where all the disciples live. But because there are too few people, there are more rooms than people. Everyone lives in a room alone. Even the newcomer Xu Feng has a room. The only thing left is the Tai Chi hole for practicing Kung Fu, the kitchen and the dining room. Taiji Dongshan also told Xu Feng that it is located in the back mountain, and only disciples who have cultivated Taiji Zuan King Dao to the third level or above can go into practice. Before that, you can only practice in your own room. Xu Feng left Master Tian Buai's room, returned to his hut, and began impatiently preparing to practice Tai Chi Zuan King Dao. He took a deep breath, calmed down, walked slowly to the bed, meditated according to the posture taught by his master Tian Buai, closed his eyes, and thought through the first level of the method of Taiji Zuan King Dao Iukingjing from beginning to end. The first level of Yuking realm is the most superficial and basic practice method in Taiji Zuan King Dao, and its function is only in 2 words, key training. Practitioners, sit quietly, let go of their minds and restrain all kinds of troubles, let the aura of heaven and earth into the body and perform the great cycle of heaven and earth, so as to take a breath with the heaven and the earth, and then feel the creation of the heaven and the earth. If you can introduce spiritual energy to run 36 consecutive heavenly circles in your body, your own meridians will be stabilized and you can cultivate to a higher level. Xu Feng didn't know if this key training was the same as the key training period in a broad sense, but if he just sensed the key between the heaven and the earth, and then circulated for 36 weeks, it seemed that there was no difficulty at all. Following the exercise route taught by Tian Buai, he really felt the spiritual energy in the sky and the earth within a short while. In this world, the concentration of spiritual energy in this world was already thicker than in the real world. After feeling the aura, I tried to introduce it into my body again, and it succeeded again very smoothly. Next, he continued to run Zhou, and there was no blockage at all. Xu Feng's tendons had already been opened up when he was practicing martial arts. Everything went smoothly. After a few hours, qi circulated through the meridians for 36 cycles. Xu Feng only felt a stream of pure energy flowing into his danshan. In this way, he successfully cultivated the first level of Tai Chi Zuan King Dao. Such a speed, if the people in the Qingyuan sect know about it, their jaws will drop in shock. This speed can be said to be unprecedented in the Qingyuan sect. Even the genius Iobic patriarch at the time may not be able to do it. It takes a few hours to practice qi successfully. But Xu Feng knew that the reason why he reached the first level so quickly was related to the martial arts he had practiced before. I am originally a late cultivation base, and I have also practiced Zixia divine art and Daowa Iju before, both of which are also methods of practicing qi, so it is easy to practice this first level. But Xu Feng understood the truth of shooting the first bird, so he planned to go to Tian Buai to learn the second level of Tai Chi Zuan King Dao after half a month. It took half a month to complete the first floor, so it shouldn't be so eye-catching. Now that the first floor has been completed, Tian Buai didn't teach the formula for the second floor, So Xu Feng had no choice but to go out of the room, ready to take a stroll around the houses of the big bamboo peak, to get acquainted with the environment. There were few people in Dazhu Peak, and the other disciples were all cultivating in the house, so they didn't see anyone. When we came to an open space in front of the peak, the sun was shining and it was noon. As practitioners, everyone in Dazhu Feng only ate one meal a day, and that was dinner. Xu Feng is a bit hungry. He has not reached the strength of Bigu. In fact, he needs to reach the third level of Yuking to overcome his hunger. Therefore, there are probably only a few people in the entire Big Bamboo Peak who can bear to eat one meal a day. Xu Feng doesn't know how the rest of the people can solve the hunger problem, especially Yuanlinger is only less than 5 years old at this time. Could it be that he also eats one meal a day? Question mark. Shaking his head, he didn't think too much about it, and looked left and right, but there was no one there, so Xu Feng took out the food from his portable space and started to eat. Since I have a portable space, preparing food is a must every time I enter a different world. Of course, the food I brought was also jerky, which was easy to preserve, and the taste was not bad. I was eating happily, and suddenly felt as if there were eyes staring at me from behind. The hair on Xu Feng's back exploded, and he turned around suddenly. He thought it was some senior brother or master, but he didn't expect that it was a big yellow dog that appeared in front of him. This dog was much bigger than ordinary dogs, almost the size of a calf. At this moment, a pair of eyes were fixed on the jerky in Xu Feng's hand, and his mouth was wide open, almost drooling. Xu Feng was stunned for a while before he remembered that this dog might be the dog that Yanbui raised since he was a child. Like Yanbui, it also lived for more than 200 years, so it can be said that it has become a spirit. Xu Feng didn't dare to offend it, so he smiled slightly, and carefully stuffed the jerky in his hand in front of Rhubarb. Rhubarb, these are for you to eat. Rhubarb glanced at Xu Feng, then lowered his head and swallowed the jerky without hesitation. It seemed to think the taste was good, licked its mouth, and then looked at Xu Feng with its dog eyes. Hey, do you want more? Xu Feng had no choice but to take out more jerky from the portable space, tear open the bag, eat a piece for himself, and feed Rhubarb a piece, and the two enjoyed themselves happily. But when he was eating happily, suddenly a little girl's voice came from behind. Wang, what are you doing here? Xu Feng turned around and found a little lolly standing there, staring at him and the big yellow dog. Her eyes were big, and she was the master's youngest daughter Yuanlinger. Xu Feng smiled helplessly and said, we are eating, do you want to eat? Xia Oceanlinger ran forward cheerfully, grabbed Xu Feng's hand, and said in a childish voice, what are you eating? I want to eat. I want to eat. Okay, Linger, I'll give it to you right now. Xu Feng took out a piece of jerky and handed it to her. Xia Oceanlinger took it and stuffed it into her mouth. Unfortunately, the jerky was very strong, and she couldn't chew it with her newly formed teeth. After biting for a while, I found that I couldn't bite, so I threw the dried meat away, pouted and said, you are lying, what kind of food is this? It doesn't taste good at all. Linger bites it don't move, But Rhubarb rushed out, caught the jerky before it hit the ground, let out a happy cry, and swallowed it. It's delicious, Linger, you are too young to bite, how about this, you can eat this. As Xu Feng said, he took out a big lollipop from his portable space and handed it to her. After Xia Oceanlinger took it, she stretched out her little tongue and licked it. Sure enough, her little face showed joy, and she said happily, it's so sweet. He raised his head and smiled at Xu Feng. Thank you, Brother Feng. Haha. Xu Feng stretched out his hand and couldn't help touching the little Lolita's hair. I have to say that Xia Oceanlinger is so cute. Playing with a big yellow dog in Xiaolinger all afternoon, the day passed like this. Early the next morning, Song Darren appeared in Xu Feng's room. Chapter 142 New Plan. Seeing Song Darren, Xu Feng immediately stopped his practice and asked, eldest brother, why are you here? Song Darren smiled slightly, and said, little brother, it's like this. My disciples who have just started at the Great Bamboo Peak have to go to the back mountain to chop bamboo for the first 3 years. This is a necessary practice. I will take you there now. Ah, is it necessary to practice? Thank you, big brother. Xu Feng was not surprised. He had known for a long time that Dazhu Feng had a custom of cutting bamboo. Song Darren brought Xu Feng to the back mountain. As expected, there were bamboos all over the mountain. When he came to a place, he handed him an ordinary firewood knife, and said, little brother, You come here to chop wood every day. From now on, you can chop wood every day. It's enough to cut one, don't force it." After speaking, Song Darren controlled Fijian and left first. Xu Feng's location is much higher than the residences of everyone, and his vision is wider. The bamboo sea is surging, the mist is transpiring, and the morning sun is rising, which makes people feel much more comfortable. Holding the knife, he glanced at the bamboo, and found that there was nothing special on the surface, but when he went down with the knife with all his strength, the bamboo was only cut in half, and it was not completely broken. Xu Feng knows that this bamboo is much harder than ordinary ones, but his own strength is not ordinary. In the book, Zhang Xiaofan cut it all day because it was the first time he cut it, and he was a child. But with the great strength of his arms, he could only cut half of it. He couldn't help shaking his head, raised the knife and dropped it with his hand. After cutting down again, the bamboo finally broke. With 2 knives and 1 bamboo, Xu Feng cut more than a dozen in one breath, then put down the knife and began to rest. It was already too difficult for him to cut bamboo. No matter how much he cut, it would not be of any benefit. But in order to hide his strength, it is impossible to go down the mountain now. Lying in the bamboo grove, listening to the sound of the waves in the bamboo sea, Xu Feng couldn't help thinking about what benefits he could get in this world of jade immortals. Of course, it is very good to learn Tai Chi Chuan Qing Dao. Wouldn't it be more beautiful if there were more benefits? And strictly speaking, the most powerful exercise in the book is not Tai Chi Chuan Qing Dao, but the mysterious heavenly book. According to the book, the origin of the heavenly book is very mysterious. There are 5 volumes in total. Whether it is the Qingyuan sect, Xian'an Temple, or the Ghost King School, their cultivation methods are all born out of the heavenly book. According to memory, Xu Feng knows the sources of the 5 heavenly books are: the first volume of the Book of Heaven. Zhang Xiaofan and Bagyo were forced into the cave of blood drops by the black water snake, and were trapped in the cave for many days. In the cave, Zhang Xiaofan got the first volume of the Book of Heaven, and Bagyo got the golden bell Madam's relic, Acacia Bell. The second volume of Heavenly Book, Zhang Xiaofan rebelled against Qingyuan sect, joined the Ghost King sect of the Ghost King sect, changed his name to Gili, and got the second volume of Heavenly Book from the Ghost King. The third book from heaven, in the Marsh of Death, Guili and Luzuki entered the treasury of heaven and earth together, and obtained the third volume of the book from heaven. The fourth volume of Xianshu, Zhang Xiaofan was rescued by a man in black dressed up by the abbot of Xian'an Temple, Master Pu Hong, and recuperated his wounds in Xian'an Temple in order to influence Zhang Xiaofan. Pu Hong took him to the uncharacterized jade bib, the treasure of Xian'an Temple, to help him eliminate the evil spirit in his chest, but he didn't want to. But it caused heavenly punishment and thunder. During this period, the fourth volume of the heavenly book flashed on the wordless jade disc, and Zhang Xiaofan comprehended the fourth volume of the heavenly book. The fifth book of heaven, but it is in the sword of Zuxian. After carefully thinking about the sources of the 5 volumes of heavenly scriptures, Xu Feng found that it was very difficult and dangerous to obtain any one of them, and it can be said that it was unrealistic. Xu Feng had no choice but to temporarily give up his plan to covet the heavenly book. Maybe next time he entered this world with a higher level of cultivation, he could explore it again. At this stage, it is better to just learn Tai Chi Chuan Qing Dao honestly. There is no better choice in terms of skills, so Xu Feng began to think about magic weapons. As a world of immortals, there are naturally many magic weapons in Zuxian. Among them, the most famous one is of course the immortal execution sword. Unfortunately, it is also too difficult to obtain. It is hidden in the Huanayu cave on the back mountain of Tongshan Peak. It can be said that there is almost no tricky way to obtain it. Other than that is Zhang Xiaofan's weapon Soul Devourer. This weapon is formed by the combination of Soul Devourer Orb, Zhang Xiaofan's blood, and Soul Absorber Rod by coincidence. Among them, the Soul Devouring Orb must still be in the hands of the monk Puzi of Xian'an Temple at this moment, so it is obviously impossible to get it. But the Soul Destroying Stick is different. Xu Feng remembers that Zhang Xiaofan was attracted by the monkey Xiaohu when he was chopping bamboo in the book, and he strayed into a cliff in the back mountain and saw it by a pool. According to the records in the book, this soul-destroying stick is a short black stick that is more than 1 foot long, and its origin is unusual. Red, it takes 1,000 years to form, it gathers the spirit of ghosts and fierceness for 1,000 years, and it becomes the ability to capture souls in 1,000 years. Such a treasure is definitely the best choice as one's magic weapon. After practicing Taoism, the Longquan sword, the previous weapon, will become more and more powerless. After all, no matter how powerful the Longquan sword is, it still belongs to the ranks of mortal weapons. Although there are dangers in taking soul hunting, Xu Feng still decided to find out. Of course, he will not go now, but wait for his cultivation base to improve. At least he must cultivate Taijizuan Qingdao to the 3rd level or above. After thinking for a long time, under the breeze blowing, Xu Feng fell asleep unknowingly, and in his dream, he even dreamed that he had successfully obtained a mentor. When he woke up, it was dusk, so Xu Feng got up to tidy up and went down the mountain. During dinner, Tian Buai asked him about the situation of cutting bamboo today with concern. Xu Feng just said modestly that he had worked hard all day, and cut about 7 or 8 bamboos. As soon as the words were finished, several disciples including Song Darren naturally stared at Xu Feng with the eyes of a monster, thinking that they could barely chop a bamboo on their first day. But Yan Buai was very happy, and even served Xu Feng with food himself. He seemed to really see the day when his lineage was coming to the fore. In the days that followed, Xu Feng naturally went up to the mountain to chop bamboo every morning, and each time it took a quarter of an hour to finish chopping, and the rest of the time was used to practice Dao Weiju, because the 2nd level of Tai Chi Zhuan Qingdao, Tian Buai hasn't handed it over to him yet. After dragging on for half a month, Xu Feng could finally go to his master Tian Buai to learn the 2nd level of Tai Chi Zhuan Qingdao. But after Tian Buai heard that Xu Feng had cultivated to the 1st level, he was still unexpectedly shocked. He even tested Xu Feng's meridians himself, and finally had to admit that Xu Feng is really a genius. Of course, if he knew that Xu Feng only took a few hours to complete the 1st floor, he didn't know how he would feel. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 143: The Dementor Odd. In view of Xu Feng's genius, Tian Buai decided to teach him the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th levels of Taijizuan Qingdao at one time. Of course Xu Feng was very happy. It took him a day to write down all the content, and ask Tian Buai about everything he didn't understand. After returning to his room, he began to practice with all his strength. He got up early every day to chop bamboo, and spent the rest of the time practicing. Tian Linger is still too young at this moment. She hasn't started doing her homework yet, but in fact Yan Buai is also teaching her the 1st level of Tai Chi Zhuan Qingdao. But now she doesn't need to cut bamboo like Xu Feng, but she will go to the back mountain every day to play with Xu Feng. There were few people in Big Bamboo Peak, and the other disciples were much older than Tian Linger, and they all practiced with bored heads. Basically no one had time to play with her. But Xu Feng chopping bamboo seems to be the most interesting, and he is also the youngest. So every time Tian Linger rides rhubarb to the back mountain to watch him chop bamboo for fun. Although Xu Feng also wanted to practice, Tian Linger was by his side when chopping bamboo, so he couldn't chop too fast. He could only do it deliberately and slowly, and play with Tian Linger by the way. Time passed slowly like this, and the days of cultivation, living on this mountain far away from the world, one's heart will really calm down slowly. As for Xu Feng, Song Darren and other senior brothers, as well as the master and wife, the relationship is getting deeper and deeper, and everyone is more and more like a family. The 2nd level of Taijizuan Qingdao is much more difficult than the 1st level, and it took Xu Feng 3 months to complete it. However, the difficulty of the 3rd floor is exponentially multiplied compared to the 2nd floor. Xu Feng understands what Tian was not easy to say back then. People with poor talent may be stuck in the bottleneck of the 3rd floor for the rest of their lives. During the process of cultivation, Xu Feng also felt that there were many obstacles. For the first time, he realized the difficulty of cultivation. It's a pity that at this time, he no longer has the system currency, and there is no way to use the system currency to speed up. In the end, relying on his own hard work, Xu Feng reached the 3rd level of Taijizuan Qingdao when he came to the world of Jade Immortals for a year and a half. Of course, Xu Feng didn't tell anyone else on the Big Bamboo Peak about the progress of his cultivation. If he had to say it, probably only Ocean Linger had seen his strength. That time, he accidentally cut off a bamboo thicker than the mouth of a bowl without controlling his strength. Although Tian Linger is only 5 or 6 years old, She usually sees Xu Feng chopping very hard, and understands his extraordinary strike. At that time, she blinked her big eyes and asked. In the end, Xu Feng had no choice but to buy the little girl with 3 lollipops, telling her not to tell her father when she went back. On this day, Xu Feng came to the back mountain. He deliberately got up very early, and in the past few days, his wife Xiuru took Yuanlinger back to Xu Feng to leave her mother's house. Xiuru was a disciple of Little Bamboo Peak back then, and she is a teacher and sister with the current master Shu Ayu of Little Bamboo Peak, and they have been friends for many years, so she would take Yuanlinger to live in Little Bamboo Peak for a few days every once in a while. Xu Feng took advantage of this opportunity, and his cultivation base had reached the 3rd level, so he was ready to implement the original plan, go to the deep valley to find the Dementor rod. When he came to the place where he cut bamboo every day, Xu Feng began to walk deep into the bamboo forest. In fact, in the past year and a half, he used his usual time to explore slowly and found a cliff deep in the bamboo forest. So this time, the route was very familiar. In less than half an hour, he passed through layers of bamboo seeds and came to the edge of the cliff. Looking down from the cliff, the bottom is completely a sunken basin. In the distance in the valley, there is dense fog, which makes it difficult to see clearly. However, on the nearby valley wall, there are no longer black knotty bamboos, but various wild trees, pines and cypresses mostly. At this time, Xu Feng had already cultivated to the 3rd floor, and his strength was already extraordinary. Although the cliff was very high, Xu Feng climbed a vine. His figure was more flexible than a real ape, and he descended to the bottom of the valley without any danger. Once entering the valley, the open sight is gone. All you can see are various unknown trees, but Xu Feng knows that it is definitely the valley, and the pool should be in the center of the valley. He found a direction and began to walk forward, holding the long Quan sword in his hand, splitting all kinds of thorns, and always paying attention to the dangers around him. Because this forest is not as beautiful as it looks on the surface, after all, since Zhang Xianfen was able to meet the 3-eyed monkey here, of course there may be other beasts in the forest, and these beasts are not necessarily good. Walking carefully like this, I also encountered some strange animals along the way, but finally found a water pool without any danger. Walking out of a forest, the eyes suddenly brightened. It was an open space, the ground was full of gravel, and there was a small green pool in the middle, with rippling water, flowing westward. It was a small pool with a small area and no source. It was probably formed by an underground spring. The water in the pool is emerald green, and you can't tell how deep it is from here. There is a gap on the west side of the pool, and the water flows out from there, converging into a small stream, winding away. In the center of the pool, there is a pile of rocks of various sizes and shapes, only a small part of which is exposed on the water. Among the chaotic rocks, a short black stick was stuck obliquely, protruding a foot above the water surface. The rest was submerged in the water. The whole body was black, and it was hard to see what material it was. Very ugly. When Xu Feng saw it, he was very happy in his heart. He really found it, the Dementor rod. But Xu Feng didn't act rashly when he was excited. After all, he knew that this Dementor rod was a little weird, and it might take some effort to get it. This open space is about 10 feet in diameter, and there is no grass growing. Xu Feng tried to step into it slowly. But as soon as his feet stepped into it, there was a boom in his head, and his body shook twice involuntarily. A nauseating feeling rose from the 5 internal organs and rushed straight to the forehead, and his whole body trembled in a moment. Xu Feng quickly withdrew his foot, and the nauseating feeling disappeared immediately. This is troublesome. How can I overcome this annoying feeling of nausea? After thinking for a long time, there was still no solution. Xu Feng knew that this nausea must be caused by the Dementor rod. It seemed that if he wanted to get it, he had to pass this test. Gritting his teeth, he stepped out again, and the nausea struck again. Xu Feng began to operate Tai Chi Zhuan Qingdao, and the spiritual energy circulated all over the body, and the nausea gradually weakened. Xu Feng was overjoyed, and continued to practice the exercises. After his body got used to it, he took the next step. One step, slowly approaching, but as he got closer, the disgusting feeling became stronger and stronger. Xu Feng could only hold on. 5 feet, 3 feet, 2 feet. Persist for a while, and we'll be there soon. Chapter 144 Distress. When he was still 10 feet away from the soul-destroying stick, Xu Feng couldn't take another step forward, because he had reached his limit. and the strong nausea and dizziness made him feel that as long as he took another step forward, he might die. Passed out directly. But Dementor was clearly right in front of him, and he was already close at hand. He was unwilling to give up like this, so he could only use his head to search all the memories, and began to think of a solution. Judging from the current situation, it is not impossible to get close to this Dementor. It seems that as long as the cultivation level is high enough, it can resist the power it naturally emits. But now there is still a foot to go. In the final analysis, my cultivation is not enough, so I can only improve my cultivation quickly or in a short period of time. Suddenly, Xu Feng remembered the last world. In the wind and cloud, there were only 2 blood bodhi left. This blood bodhi has the effect of bringing the dead back to life when seriously injured, but taking it when it is not injured will also greatly improve people's skills. Now I can't care much about it anymore, as long as I eat it to improve my skills again and persist in getting the Soul Destroyer. After having the Soul Destroyer stick, my strength will be greatly improved again, and everything will be worth it by then. Xu Feng withdrew first, went to a place outside the open space that was not affected by the Dementor, then took out 2 blood bodhi from the portable space, and swallowed them all at once. After eating, the whole body began to surge with heat, like in a sauna, and the energy rushing through the meridians was like magma. Of course, Xu Feng would not waste a single iota of it. He used Hejizuan Kingdao to guide the energy from the Beihu Point, through the Niwen Palace, through the 8 extraordinary meridians, and finally into the Danshan. Week after week, energy was guided, tamed, and absorbed, and Xu Feng felt that his strength was also growing rapidly. 2 hours later, all the energy contained in the blood bodhi had been absorbed. Xu Feng felt it for a while, and was pleasantly surprised to find that his Tai Chi Zhuan Qingdao had reached the 4th floor. And according to what Master Tian Buyi said when he taught him Taiji Zhuan Qingdao, once he cultivated to the 4th level of Yuking realm, he would have the foundation of 10,000 dermas, and he could start to practice other thaumaturgical techniques and cultivate his own at the same time magic weapon. Now because of this coincidence, he actually broke through to the 4th floor. Xu Feng is really very happy. Standing up, he walked towards the Dementor rod again, step by step, and came to a distance of 1 foot away from it again. Sure enough, he hadn't reached the limit this time, and Xu Feng felt that he still had enough strength. Breaking through for a foot, slowly approaching, and finally successfully walked to the side of the Dementor rod, and carefully reached out to grab it. There was a tingling pain in the palm, a drop of blood flowed out, and was absorbed by the Dementor. Its dark stick body flashed red, and then suddenly, all the negative feelings, nausea and vomiting disappeared. Xu Feng's whole body relaxed for a while. He held the Dementor stick, looked at it carefully and stroked it. There was a strange feeling in his mind. There seemed to be a spiritual connection between himself and it. He knew that he had obtained it successfully, and it could already be regarded as his magic weapon. Xu Feng could feel its past in the spiritual connection fatally transmitted from Dementor, where it was full of blood red, full of thoughts of killing, mountains of corpses and oceans of blood flowing across ores. These all mean that it is an evil magic weapon, but Xu Feng is not afraid. He believes that there is no such thing as an evil magic weapon. A magic weapon is a weapon after all, and what happens to it depends on the person who uses it. It is meaningless and ridiculous to characterize a weapon as evil because of the sins of its former owner. But the people in Qingaiman might not think so. Xu Feng played with his Soul Destroyer for a while, and finally put it away. He decided to return to the Big Bamboo Peak, and never expose it to others unless it was the most dangerous time in front of you, so as not to cause unnecessary trouble. It was already afternoon at this time. Xu Feng didn't stay, and left the pool. He went on the way he came and went. If he didn't leave in time and it got dark, no one knew what would happen. After walking for a while, the forest suddenly began to fog up, and the fog was getting bigger and bigger, and soon it was impossible to see anything 2 or 3 meters away. Xu Feng was completely unprepared. The sudden fog made him completely lost his direction and he couldn't see the front. It would be foolish to go out in such a primeval forest. After several attempts, Xu Feng had to give up. The fog prevented him from going back to Dazhuifang temporarily. As a last resort, after searching around, I could only choose the tallest tree nearby and climb up, planning to wait until the fog cleared before trying to get out. But while he was waiting, a gust of wind hit, and Xu Feng was shocked all over. He knew something was wrong, something should have come. With a thought, the long Quan sword appeared in his hand. Although Dementor had been subdued, but its function had not been studied yet, Xu Feng could only use the sword in his hand first. Grasping the Longquan sword in his hand, he looked around vigilantly, but found nothing. But the sense of urgency was getting closer and closer, and he was so pressed that he couldn't breathe. He raised his head suddenly, and met a pair of lantern-sized eyes. It is really a pair of lantern-sized eyes, red, especially conspicuous in the fog. Most of its body was hidden in the mist, and without time to see what it was, Xu Feng slashed at the thing in front of him with a single sword. The sword energy drove the mist, and slashed fiercely on the unknown creature in front of him, but the sound of gold and iron clashing followed. With the sharpness of the Longquan sword and his own full blow, he unexpectedly even the defense of this unknown creature in front of him can't be broken. Xu Feng was really taken aback. He knew that he might really be in big trouble. And the creature froze for a moment. Obviously it didn't expect Xu Feng's attack to be so sudden, but it just froze for a moment, and it moved instantly. Xu Feng only felt that the entire fog with a radius of tens of meters seemed to be stirred by it, bringing a gust of wind hide him. The blow just now had already measured the strength of the creature in front of him. Facing its attack, Xu Feng certainly didn't dare to take it head-on, so he jumped down from the tree, trying to avoid it. But he didn't land as expected. Instead he was in midair, his whole body tense up, and the bones all over his body felt like they were about to shatter. Xu Feng was in midair, and he finally saw the whole picture of the thing that attacked him clearly. It turned out to be a huge snake with a length of more than 10 feet. Its waist was as thick as a bucket, and the lantern-like eyes were its eyes. Such a huge snake was obviously a mutated species, and Xu Feng was entangled by it, making it impossible to move. The giant snake's head stretched out slowly, and the snake stammered, apparently waiting for Xu Feng to die. It was about to open its mouth to enjoy a delicious meal. It's Chinese New Year, there are a lot of things, please forgive me, there will be at least one update every day, and thank you for your rewards, thank you. Chapter 145 The Power of Magic Weapon. Of course Xu Feng wouldn't sit still, he swung his sword desperately and stabbed at the snake's body. The flames shot out, but he couldn't break through its defense. As a last resort, he had to use the most powerful move of the inexplicable swordsmanship, pouring the whole body's power into the sword body, and stabbing at the big snake's eyes. The snake couldn't dodge it in time, and her left eye the size of a lantern was stabbed blind by Xu Feng. Period. Under the pain, it let go of Xu Feng, threw him far away, flicked its tail, and lashed towards him fiercely. Before the body landed, the snake's attack had already come. With a strong wind, Xu Feng had to speed up and retreat, and defended with all his strength. With the power of the snake's tail, he flew far away to a tree. The snake was blind in one eye, but it was still very agile. It missed a single blow, and quickly twisted its body to catch up. Various thoughts quickly turned in Xu Feng's mind. He knew that his speed was much slower than that of the giant snake in this dense forest. He couldn't run away, and it was unrealistic to expect someone to rescue him. Now the only thing left to do is to fight it head-on. This is a life-and-death struggle. But the sword still couldn't hurt it, so Xu Feng had to put away the Longquan sword, and then remembered that he had already successfully cultivated it, and had never used it before. So he recited the mantra silently. Heaven and earth are boundless, and the universe borrows the law, and he waved his hands in turn like butterflies wearing flowers, and blasted energy balls at the big snake one by one, with extraordinary power. The giant snake was bombarded and dodged in a hurry. Obviously, it could no longer ignore this level of attack. The snake's body was slowly covered with scars. This is the first time Xu Feng has used it since he succeeded in practicing Kaiankan. He did not expect that the power is really extraordinary, and it is also very simple to use. Seeing that it can hurt the giant snake, he waved his hands tirelessly, as if like a mobile turret, it is bombarding the giant snake from a long distance. Xu Feng is equivalent to occupying the supremacy of the air. The giant snake can only be bombarded, and cannot be approached at all. While he was rejoicing about all this, he thought that the snake would be dealt with after a while. But unexpectedly, when he waved his hand again, there was no energy ball blasted out. It's over, I have borrowed all my mana. Xu Feng knew something bad was going to happen, and sure enough, the giant snake, which had been crushed and couldn't lift its head just now, had a fierce light in its eyes, and the one eye had completely turned blood red. It opened its mouth wide and killed it quickly, so Xu Feng had to run away quickly. Now that the sword and palm techniques are useless, the only thing left is the Dementor rod that he got just now. Xu Feng took out the soul-destroying stick while running, and communicated with it with his mind, then suddenly stopped and turned around. The giant snake was following him closely, but at this moment it bumped into it. Gritting his teeth, he gripped the soul-destroying stick tightly, and poked it out. The body of the snake hit the stick. Originally, with its huge kinetic energy, Xu Feng's move was definitely no less than a mole shaking a tree and a mantis turning a cart. But in fact, the giant snake just stopped in the air, and time and space seemed to stand still for a moment. Immediately afterwards, the Dementor rod suddenly glowed red, and the red light broke through the layers of fog, illuminating the entire forest, and under this weird red light, the body of the big snake suddenly began to shrink rapidly. Soon, the whole body of the snake turned into a skeleton, and all the flesh and blood disappeared. It was already too dead to die, and the crisis was over like this. The red light slowly faded away, and the Dementor returned to normal black twig. Who would have thought that it would be so powerful? Xu Feng was very happy. This trip was full of dangers, but the power of soul stirring in the end really didn't waste his efforts. After killing the big snake, Xu Feng didn't waste the whole bones of the snake, but coiled them up and put them into his portable space. This giant snake has obviously become a spirit, and its skeleton will be used to refine magic weapons or other things in the future, which are rare treasures. Strange to say, after the big snake died, the fog in the forest disappeared, and it was not long before dark, so Xu Feng didn't dare to stay, and continued on the way he came. After more than half an hour this time, he walked out of the forest smoothly and came to the bottom of the cliff when he came down. It didn't take much effort to climb up, and then finally arrived before dark and returned to Xu Feng. When it was time for dinner, Master Tian Bui and others naturally had no doubts. Xu Feng was eating, thinking about today's process. He was afraid for a while, if he hadn't lost his soul in the end, he might fall on the big snake. From the second day on, Xu Feng still went to the back mountain to chop bamboo every day. Now that his strength has entered the 4th level of Yuking realm, it is even easier to chop bamboo. Xu Feng spent the extra time studying how to control the magic weapon. On the 4th floor, you can already start refining and using the magic weapon, not for anything else. Once you learn to use the magic weapon, you will be able to control things at that time, which is what Xu Feng looks forward to the most. The Longquan sword is not yet at the level of the magic weapon, so of course it cannot be used for practice, and can only be used as a ready-made magic weapon, the Dementor rod. There is also a set of formulas for controlling the magic weapon, but it is not complicated. When Jian was not easy to teach the 4th level, he taught it by the way. Xu Feng has been practicing silently like this. He cuts bamboo in the back mountain alone, and no one will disturb him. Of course, Xia Oceanlinger sometimes comes to cut bamboo with him. 1 month later, on this day, Xu Feng held the magic formula with his hands as usual, and used all his willpower to control the black soul-destroying stick in front of him. Before, no matter how hard he tried, the Dementor rod lay motionless on the ground, but this time, it actually shook, and then slowly floated up from the ground bit by bit, and finally stopped in the midair in front of him. It was the first time Xu Feng managed to control it with his mind, and he was extremely happy, but as his mood fluctuated, the Dementor rod popped again and fell to the ground. But after one success, the next step will be very easy. Xu Feng began to practice continuously, constantly strengthening the control in operation, and controlling Dementor to make various actions. After practicing like this for a few days, he is already fully proficient at controlling the object, and can control the Dementor to attack others. Of course, there is still a distance limit. At this stage, he can only control it at a distance of about 10 feet around his body. However, Xu Feng believed that with the improvement of cultivation base and the strengthening of mental power in the future, the distance that can be controlled will become farther and farther, and finally it is not impossible to achieve the legendary decapitation of thousands of miles away. Another aspect of Yu Wu is the flying of Yu Wu, which is another cool skill, and Xu Feng is naturally yearning and looking forward to it. After practicing the Imperial Object attack, Xu Feng officially began to try the Imperial Object flying. Of course, this process is continuous practice. The days go by slowly like this. Immersed in cultivation, people's troubles are much less. Xu Feng really likes this kind of life. Chapter 146 Duel. The difficulty of Imperial Object flying is much greater, and it cannot be learned in a short while. Xu Feng is practicing every day, and he is also slowly practicing the 4th level of Taiji Zuan King Dao. There is no time to practice, and more than half a year has passed in the blink of an eye. Counting it, it has been more than 2 years in the world of Jade Immortals. Xu Feng began to think about when he would return to the real world. After all, there are people he cares about in the real world, and things waiting for him to deal with. Although he likes the simple and pure days of cultivation, it is impossible to stay here forever after all. But before leaving, Xu Feng still wanted to learn more about Taijizu and Qingdao. After all, it is really not easy to come here once. And if you want Master to teach you some formulas, you must find a way to let him know that you have reached the 4th level. After thinking for a while, Xu Feng realized that there was an opportunity right in front of him. Tian Buai and Seer would inspect the cultivation progress of the disciples once a year. And the time of this investigation is usually set during the Chinese New Year. Although everyone in Xu Feng is already a cultivator, they still retain many secular habits, such as the Chinese New Year. Although they don't set off firecrackers and put up Spring Festival couplets like ordinary people, on New Year's Eve, the teacher's wife Seer will still cook in person and cook a table of delicious dishes for everyone to have a New Year's dinner together. And this day all the disciples don't have to practice. Taking this opportunity, Tian Buai will personally check the progress of everyone's cultivation. This day was the last day of the year. Xu Feng got up early in the morning. Ever since he came to this world, he got up at the same time as the sunrise every morning. It's just that today he doesn't have to go to the back mountain to chop bamboo. Arriving at the small square in front of Shaojing Hall, eldest senior brother Song Darren, second senior brother Wu Dei, third senior brother Zhang Dali, fifth senior brother Lu Daxin, and sixth senior brother Du Dashi were already there. Xu Feng greeted them with a smile, and they returned the salute, but their expressions were not very good-looking, as if they were worried about something. Xu Feng couldn't help being surprised, although everyone was very nervous about Master Tian Buai's investigation, but they shouldn't show such an expression, so he could only ask, "Eldest brother, what's the matter with you? Why are you so sad?" Song Darren shook his head with a wry smile, glanced at Shou Jingtang, and said softly, "A disciple from Longshao Peak came to visit Master." "Ah. That won't make you frown, will it? Junior brother, you didn't know that you have only been here for a long time." Master and his old man had a feud with the first Kingsong Master uncle of Longshao Peak, so my Big Bamboo Peak and their Longshao Peak have always had a bad relationship. And Longshao Peak is much better than us in terms of the number of disciples and cultivation resources. Every year at this time, they will send a disciple to compete with us, in fact, to humiliate us. Only after Song Darren finished speaking, Du Bishu, the sixth son on the side, interjected, and every year, only the elder brother can hold on. The rest of us are too low in cultivation, and we are not their opponents, so we know that they are here to humiliate us. But it is absolutely impossible. As soon as he finished speaking, the others shook their heads and sighed. And Xu Feng probably figured out the twists and turns, and understood that today is not only a day for Tian Buai to inspect their martial arts, but also people from Longshao Peak are here to play. Without saying anything, Xu Feng prepared to wait and see what happened. He stepped forward and stood beside Du Dishu, lining up with the others. After waiting for about a stick of incense, the door of Shaojing Hall opened from the inside. Tian Buai walked out, and beside him stood a young man in blue clothes. That young man with sword-like eyebrows and star-eyed eyes was a good-looking man, and he was talking and laughing happily with Tian while walking at the moment. In front of the crowd, although Tian Buai smiled, Xu Feng could see the anger hidden in his smile. "This is nephew Liu Ming, the leader of the younger generation of Longshao Peak. He wants to compete with you, so please satisfy him." After Tian Buai finished speaking, he backed away and sat on the Grand Teacher's chair beside him. That Liu Ming took a step forward and cupped his hands with a smile on his face. "Brothers, let's have a friendly discussion." Although he had a smile on his face and his words were considered polite, Xu Feng still felt his contempt and the playfulness that flashed from the corner of his eyes, although it was well concealed. Song Darren didn't move. The sixth son Du Bishu stepped forward first, and said, "Let me, Du Bishu, first come and teach you, the genius of Longshao Peak, the moves." As soon as the words fell, Du Bishu rushed up. He was still at the 3rd level of Yuking. He had no magic weapon, and he couldn't use it, so he could only fight with his hands. But that Liu Ming stretched out his hand and summoned a sword, and controlled the sword to fight Du Bishu out of thin air. It was obvious that he was at least the 4th floor of the Jade Queen realm. Of course, There was no suspense in the result. After a few rounds, although Du Bishu gritted his teeth and fought hard, he was still defeated. Next, the fifth child also failed, and the fourth child, the third child, were all defeated by Liu Ming's flying sword one by one. And every time Liu Ming defeated one, Tian Buai, who was sitting there, would have an ugly expression on his face. In the end, even Wu Dai, the second child, lost. Only Song Darren and Xu Feng were left without playing. But obviously neither Tian Buai nor Song Darren counted Xu Feng in it. After all, his time to get started is too short. Song Darren walked forward slowly, and stood facing Liu Ming with a serious face. And that Liu Ming finally put away his indifferent expression, with a rare seriousness on his face. I have heard for a long time that senior brother Song of Xu Feng is extremely talented and his cultivation is unfathomable. Today, Liu Ming asked senior brother Song to enlighten him. Song Darren didn't answer, but he pinched the sword formula and summoned a flying sword. Du Bishu and the others couldn't help cheering, and Tian Buai also showed a look of satisfaction on his face. He was always quite satisfied with Song Darren, his great disciple. The two people on the field, after a stalemate for a while, began to control the flying swords and began to fight. This battle was brilliant, with flying swords dancing on the field and auras everywhere, making it difficult to tell the winner. Xu Feng was fascinated watching it off the court. This was also the first time he saw people fighting with his own eyes, and he could learn a lot from it. After fighting for about a quarter of an hour, the situation on the court began to change. Song Darren seemed to be starting to run out of steam. Once the decline appeared, it was irreversible. In the end, Song Darren still lost to Liu Ming. Putting away the flying sword, Song Darren walked down the stage with a bitter smile. Everyone was silent for a while, and Tian Buai's face was already ashen. That Liu Ming put away his sword, folded his arms and made a bow, finally faced Tian Buai, smiled and said, "Tian Shishu, I have accepted. This junior has successfully learned the brilliant moves of all senior brothers, so I am leaving." Tian Buai just kept a cold face, but didn't speak. Liu Ming was about to leave when he heard a voice behind him. "Wait a minute, you and I haven't defeated yet." Chapter 147. The person who spoke was Xu Feng. After getting along with him for this period of time, he had already regarded himself as a real member of Xu Feng, and he naturally felt the same for the honor of Xu Feng. That Liu Ming obviously kicked the field. If he was allowed to leave like this, the entire Big Bamboo Peak would be ashamed, so Xu Feng was ready to make a move. What's more, today he originally wanted to show his full strength, so that his master could teach him the formula behind Tai Chi Zhuan Qing Dao. Now he just took this opportunity to show his strength, and after watching the fight between Liu Ming and several senior brothers, Xu Feng already had a rough grasp in his heart. Then Liu Ming's strength should still be at the 4th level of Yuking, not the 5th level. The reason why he can defeat Song Darren, who is also at the 4th level, is that Xu Feng's analysis is that his skill is a little deeper and he has more combat experience. However, as a person who has traveled through several worlds and has experienced so many battles in each world, Xu Feng is confident that his own combat experience is definitely better than this Liu Ming. Using his rich actual combat experience, there is still a high possibility of winning. When Xu Feng's words fell, not only Liu Ming looked over in surprise, Tian Buai and Song Darren also looked at him in surprise. Song Darren immediately took a step forward to stop him. "Junior brother, you have just started, you are not his opponent, although it is a competition, you may be injured." Although the other senior brothers didn't say anything, they obviously meant the same thing, and Tian Buai, who was sitting far away, also shook his head, obviously disapproving of him going on stage. They obviously thought that his cultivation base was too low, and they were afraid that he would be injured after going up. Xu Feng smiled slightly, and said to Song Darren with full confidence, "Thank you, big brother, but I want to go up and try. I am also from Big Bamboo Peak part." The corner of Song Darren's mouth twitched, and just as he was about to say something, Liu Ming at the side said first, "So you are the new disciple of Master Yan?" I said, "Why haven't I seen you before? Since you are also a disciple of Xu Peak, we have to try it out." As he spoke, he took control of his flying sword again. Xu Feng gave Song Darren a look to reassure him, and walked into the arena. Regarding Liu Ming, he didn't want to say any more nonsense, and with a thought, he also controlled his sword to fly in the air in front of him. In this kind of occasion, it is of course impossible to use the Dementor rod, so Xu Feng can only use the Longquan sword, which is not yet a magic weapon. But fortunately, his supernatural powers have been fully cultivated. Even if it is not a magic weapon, he can control it, and the Longquan sword has been fused with half of the sword soul of the Peerless Sword in Beijing Villa. Its power has greatly increased, and it is not far from the magic weapon. At least it can be regarded as a half-magic weapon. And Liu Ming on the field found that Xu Feng could actually control things, and his expression suddenly became dignified. Only those above the 4th floor of the Jade Clear Realm can control things. Doesn't it mean that the young disciple in front of him is also in the same situation as himself? On the 4th floor? The expressions of the seniors off the field, as well as Yan Buai, also changed. They didn't expect Xu Feng's cultivation to be so high. But after being surprised, they immediately realized that Du Bishu took the lead and cheered. Young junior brother is too powerful, come on, beat him. Xu Feng put all his body and mind on the opponent on the opposite side, carefully looked at Liu Ming, and had automatically blocked everything from the outside world. The two stood in a stalemate for a while, and Liu Ming also looked at Xu Feng firmly, and the aura of the two of them was slowly rising imperceptibly. In the end, Liu Ming seemed impatient to wait, and took the lead to break the balance between the two, showed his flying sword, and killed Xu Feng. Xu Feng also controlled a Longquan sword, and charged towards Liu Ming. The two swords met in midair, and a fierce battle began. Although Liu Ming had quite a bit of experience in controlling the flying sword, after a few fights with Xu Feng, he discovered that Xu Feng was not easy. It turned out that Xu Feng actually controlled the flying sword and displayed an inexplicable sword technique in the air. He had tried it before when he was practicing in the back mountain, so he was very proficient in controlling it. At that time, Xu Feng also had a flash of inspiration. The inexplicable sword technique was originally a martial arts technique, and it was used in close combat with human hands. It was used on long-distance flying swords, but it had unimaginable beauty. Xu Feng groped and modified some tricks according to the characteristics of Fijian, and the overall effect was very good. I didn't expect it to be used in actual combat for the first time today. It is really feasible. People who cultivate immortals, control flying swords to hurt people, just relying on surprise and the speed of flying swords. Most people will not study the operation of flying swords at all method. Soon, although the fight was fierce, Xu Feng slowly began to gain the upper hand. Although Liu Ming tried his best, he could only slowly become clumsy. Liu Ming himself is only at the 4th level of Yuking. Apart from manipulating the flying sword, he has not yet started to learn other magic powers, so there is no other way. After fighting for dozens of moves, the two swords intersected, and with a bang, Liu Ming's flying sword was knocked down to the ground, while Xu Feng's flying sword was already in front of his neck. Liu Ming's handsome face, which was always calm and gentle, was now distorted ferociously, full of disbelief. Originally, he came to humiliate the people of Xu under the instruction of Master Kang Song Taoist. He was the pride of heaven in Longshao Peak, so he was confident enough to pick a Xu whose number was less than a fraction of their Longshao Fen. It was true that everything was going well, but now he was actually defeated by this new disciple who appeared suddenly. At this moment, he not only has the humiliation of failure in his heart, but also has worries and fears. He knows the character of Master Kang Song the real person best. Originally, the master sent him here to deal with his old rival Yan, but now he has messed up. You will definitely be punished after you go back. He glanced at Xu Feng bitterly, gritted his teeth and said, "What's your name?" Xu Feng shrugged his shoulders lightly, and deliberately said in a mocking tone, "You are defeated, why should I tell you my name?" Since Liu Ming came here to deliberately cause trouble, Xu Feng will not give him face. Sure enough, Liu Ming's expression became even uglier after hearing this, and he turned his head directly, controlled the flying sword, and left with a whoosh. Meanwhile, the senior brothers at the side all gathered around at this moment, asking each other non-stop. Obviously, they all had too many doubts. They could never have imagined that in the end, this little junior brother who had only been in the market for less than 3 years would give them saved face. But each of them was really happy, and they all asked about Xu Feng's cultivation situation with good intentions. They were really curious. Just when everyone was asking questions, Tian Buai coughed from behind. "Fenger, follow me to the back hall." Chapter 148 Tai Chi Cave. Xu Feng followed Tian Buai to the back hall of Shaojing Hall. After Tian Buai entered the room, he sat on the Taishi chair and began to stare at him without saying a word. Master, Don't be like this, look at me, I'm afraid. Xu Feng smiled wryly. He really couldn't detect the emotion in Tian Bui's eyes. He didn't know if it was a blessing or a curse. Tian Bui suddenly smiled, and the flesh on his face was huddled together. Fenger, you really did not let me down. Today you not only saved my face at Big Bamboo Peak, but you actually managed to save my face in just 2 short days. I have cultivated to the 4th level of the Jade Queen realm in just a year, and I am truly a rare talent in ancient and modern times. Even in my entire Qinghai, I can count on one hand those who are as talented as you are. He stood up, walked to Xu Feng's side, looked at him affectionately, stretched out his hand and patted Xu Feng's shoulder and said, I really didn't misread you. My Big Bamboo Peak is finally expected to rise. Okay, really very good. Xu Feng was of course very happy when he got such affirmation, but he didn't say anything. He just echoed Tian Bui. Okay, since you have already cultivated to the 4th level, then I will pass on all the remaining formulas of Taiji Zuan Qingdao to you. Thank you, Master. Xu Feng said gratefully from the bottom of his heart. In the following time, Tian Bui spent about half a day teaching the formulas. In fact, the exercises are not complicated. How far he can go on the road of cultivation after the 4th level mainly depends on the practitioner's hard work, coupled with the practitioner's own talent. Back in his room, Xu Feng will continue to practice for the next time, and Tian Bui said that since he has reached the 4th floor of Yuking, chopping bamboo is no longer useful to him, and there is no need to go to the back mountain to chop bamboo in the future up. It saves the time to go up the mountain to chop bamboo, and life becomes simpler. Basically, most of the time is spent on cultivation. Of course, practicing is not just about meditating in the room. As long as you reach the 3rd floor of Yuking, you can enter the Taiji cave in the back mountain to start practicing. This Tai Chi cave was specially built for Dazu Peak's disciples to cultivate, and Xu Feng didn't know exactly what the scene was inside. He concealed his strength before, so although he has already reached the 4th floor of Yuking, he has never been to the Tai Chi cave. Now that everyone knows his cultivation level, he can naturally go there openly. Song Darren and the others, in fact, usually practiced in the Tai Chi cave. Early this morning, they asked Xu Feng to go to the Tai Chi cave together. With curiosity, Xu Feng came to Taiji cave and found that it was really a natural cave. After entering, there was no one to control the cave. It was a primitive cave. After Song Darren and others entered the cave, they left separately, found a corner to sit down and began to meditate silently. Xu Feng didn't want to ask. He looked around, trying to find out what was so special about this place, but after looking around for a long time, he finally found that it was a natural cave on the surface. If there is any real difference, it is that in this cave, the concentration of aura is much thicker than that outside. It can be said that people are very comfortable in it. It is conceivable to enter the realm of cultivation in this kind of place. Xu Feng also found a corner, sat down, and began to seriously practice the rear part of Taiji Zuan Qingdao. As soon as I started to practice the exercises, I could clearly feel the benefits brought by the strong concentration of spiritual energy. Not only was it much easier to practice, but it even had the effect of getting twice the result with half the effort. After practicing for a period of time, Xu Feng gradually discovered that practicing in the Taiji cave not only has a high concentration of spiritual energy, but also creates many hallucinations in his mind during the cultivation process. At the beginning, Xu Feng didn't know what was the use of this kind of hallucination, but later he discovered that this kind of hallucination that appeared during normal practice is actually a great exercise for one's mind. Smooth and easy, that is, it will increase the resistance to demons. With these abilities, Tai Chi Cave can indeed be regarded as a blessed place for cultivation. Since then, Xu Feng has come to this Tai Chi Cave to practice early in the morning every day. The days passed like this. During this period, by chance, the teacher's wife's Yuru brought her junior sister back to Xu Feng. She suddenly came to Xu Feng and said that she wanted to take him with her. At the beginning Xu Feng was still confused. After all, why did the teacher take him with her when she returned to her natal home? Yuru is a person with a clear mind. She immediately saw Xu Feng's doubts, and explained with a smile, "The last time I went back to Xu Feng, I told my senior sister about you. She was very curious after hearing about it, and explained repeatedly, I will definitely take you with me next time I go. She wants to see your genius with her own eyes." "That's it, then okay, then I will go with you, mistress." Good, good, haha. Brother Feng and Linger go together, There are many beautiful sisters on Xu Feng, Brother Feng, you will definitely like them. Tianlinger clapped her little hands excitedly and said. She was 7 or 8 years old at this time, with big eyes and long eyelashes. She was a super cute little lolly, and the embryo of a peerless beauty. Xu Feng smiled at her, thinking that the little girl really doesn't know what to say. Beautiful sister, does she look like such a horny person? Xiru hugged Xiaoxinlinger, and then took Xu Feng, controlled her flying sword, and flew towards Xu Feng. It arrived in a short while. The big and small bamboo peaks were very close to each other. Taking a glance from the air, Xu Feng found that the top of the small bamboo peak was actually full of bamboos. However, upon closer inspection, it seems that the bamboos on the big bamboo peak are very different from those on the big bamboo peak, while the bamboos on the small bamboo peak are relatively small, similar to Xiaoxian bamboo, suitable for women to appreciate. Following the teacher's wife Xiru came to the reception hall. The whole hall is also made of bamboo, which has a special flavor. As soon as I sat down, a few people came out from the room. One of them walked up to the top and sat down. It was a woman who looked about 30 years old. She was the first Shuai master of Xu Feng. When Xu Feng first came to Qingyuan, he met her in the hall of Tongshan Peak one side. Master Shuai greeted Xiru, and after joking with Tianlinger, he focused his attention on Xu Feng. Are you Xu Feng who was told by junior sister Xiru that he cultivated to the 4th floor of Yuking in less than 3 years? Don't dare, the junior is Xu Feng. Xu Feng answered, neither humble nor overbearing. Although he was a little disgusted with his strength being spread everywhere, he didn't show it. Hearing Xu Feng's affirmative answer, Shuaiyu suddenly released a powerful divine sense to attack him. This move of hers was obviously to test Xu Feng, and Xu Feng's reaction was also very fast and abnormal, and finally resolved her divine sense. A gleam of certainty flashed in Shuaiu's eyes. Sure enough, you have the 4th level of Yuking. I met you in Yuking Palace, but I didn't expect you to have such a talent. Tian Buai really picked up a good mistake. As she said that, she laughed, and Xiru also smiled and said, Senior sister, it's a pity that your little bamboo peak can't accept male disciples, but Zuki's talent will probably not be worse than Fenger in the future. Zuki, Xu Feng's heart moved. He thought of Lu Zuki, one of his Huxin's heroines. She was adopted by the first Shuai master of Xu Feng since she was a child. Could it be possible to see Lu Zuki, who is also a Lolita this time? Chapter 149 Lu Zuki. Hearing what Xiru said, Shuai showed a gratified smile on her face. She turned around and waved to her back. A little girl came forward. She stroked the little girl's head, and said lovingly, This child Zuki, her bones are excellent, and now I have begun to teach her exercises. Xu Feng looked at the girl, and saw that she was only about 10 years old, but she was already tall, with long hair and a beautiful face, but her expression was light, as if she had a sense of alienation that was incompatible with the surrounding environment. This sense of alienation gave her a cold aura, as if she was a fairy who didn't eat fireworks. Looking at her, Xu Feng could already imagine what Lu Zuki would look like when she grew up. Little Lu Zuki seemed to have sensed Xu Feng's gaze. She raised her icy eyes and glanced at him lightly. The glance of a little girl less than 10 years old surprised Xu Feng. In this glance, what Xu Feng felt was an alienated and proud soul. Xu Feng had no choice but to smile back, and Xiru, who was at the side, saw Lu Zuki, also smiled and praised her a few words. As for Xiao Tianlinger, although her age is similar to Lu Zuki's, the two seem to be unfamiliar with each other, maybe because their auras don't match. Master Shuai met Xu Feng and tried his strength level, and then she started to catch up with Xiru. Xiru let Xu Feng wander casually on the small bamboo peak by himself. Walking on Xu Feng, the architectural style and environment are really similar to Xu Feng, but there are many more disciples on Xu Feng than Xu Feng. Along the way, all the female disciples I met were female disciples. It was like entering the country of daughters, and when those female disciples saw Xu Feng, they all whispered about him secretly. Being stared at by so many women, Xu Feng felt uncomfortable all over, and couldn't feel the happiness of being in the thousands of flowers at all. He had no choice but to run away, trying his best to go to a place with few people, and he came to the back mountain without knowing it. The environment on the back mountain is very quiet, and there are thin bamboos growing there. After walking, I came to the edge of a cliff. On a big rock protruding from the cliff, a little girl was sitting at the moment. She hung her feet outside and looked at the sea of clouds in front of her. Looking at this figure from the back, Xu Feng recognized it was Luzuki, and he walked to her side gently without disturbing her. I saw the sea of clouds being blown by the wind, churning like sea waves, the clouds rolling and the clouds relaxing. Looking at it can make people's hearts strangely calm down. Xu Feng closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and said softly, "This is really a good place." He didn't expect Luzuki's answer at first, but he was surprised to hear her cold voice with a childlike voice. Yes, it can make people very calm. Xu Feng opened his eyes, glanced at her, and thought that the little girl is not as cold as she appears on the surface. Luzuki had no parents since she was a child and was adopted by Shuayu, so her personality is a bit lonely and cold, but it seems that her heart is still very kind. Taking this opportunity, Xu Feng chatted with Xiaozuki. Although he was about to leave the world of Jade Immortals now, he would still come back in the future. As Luzuki is the main character in the world of Jade Immortals, it would be good to establish a good relationship with him first, at least to get acquainted with him. After chatting for a long time, although Xiaozuki didn't talk much, basically she would answer Xu Feng's questions as much as possible. Before leaving, Xu Feng took out a mirror and gave it to her. Although Xuxian is a world of immortals, women here can only use bronze mirrors to dress up. No matter how smooth the bronze mirror is, the figures it reflects are still yellowish and a little fuzzy, which is incomparable with modern mirrors. When Xiaozuki received the mirror, she immediately took a look at it. It was the first time she saw such a miraculous mirror, and she also had a surprised expression on her little face. But after being shocked, he quickly returned the mirror to Xu Feng, and said softly, "This mirror is so strange, it must be a valuable magic weapon, I can't have it. Just accept it, I still have a lot here." Xu Feng didn't pick up the mirror she handed over, turned around and left, came to the front peak, and his mistress Seer was also about to leave, so he followed his mistress back to the Big Bamboo Peak. After returning to Big Bamboo Peak, Xu Feng officially began to prepare to leave this world. Everything he needed to do had been done, and he had also learned all the exercises behind Tai Chi Zhuan Qing Dao. As for the excuse to leave, he had already thought of it. After every disciple of Dazhu Peak reached the 4th level of Yuking, they would go down the mountain to practice and find the materials for refining their own magic weapons. Xu Feng was going to take this opportunity to leave Dazhu Fen. Even if he disappeared at that time, everyone would only think that something happened to him or he disappeared. It's just that Xu Feng was really reluctant to leave this place where he had been staying for 4 years in the blink of an eye. He was already very familiar with every plant and tree on the Big Bamboo Peak in the past 4 years. What's more, there are master and wife who are very kind to me, as well as senior brothers, as well as the lovely Xiaotian Linger, and even the big yellow dog. All this made it difficult for him to let go, but after all, he had to leave. Xu Feng could only comfort himself, and when he returned to this world, he would still have the opportunity to meet these familiar people. Before leaving, Xu Feng carefully looked at the front and back of the Big Bamboo Peak, and then firmly remembered these beautiful memories in his mind. During dinner, he and his master Tian Buai proposed that they want to go down the mountain to find materials for refining magic weapons. "Well, Fenger, you really want to go down the mountain? You can't delay the matter of the magic weapon material, so you can go down the mountain tomorrow." "Thank you, master." Xiru looked at him lovingly, and said, "Fenger, you go down the mountain alone, you must pay attention to safety and everything, and you must take care of yourself when you are out alone, you know." "Understood, thank you, mistress." The corners of Xu Feng's eyes couldn't help getting a little moist. Mistress really treated him like her own child. Song Garen and other disciples also entrusted Xu Feng earnestly, and taught him the experience of going down the mountain to find magic weapon materials. Xia Ocean Linger heard it from the side, and came forward and pulled him by the sleeve and said, "Brother Feng, are you going down the mountain? After that, Linger won't be able to see you." She pursed her mouth as she spoke, as if she was about to cry. Xu Feng quickly stroked her hair, and comforted her softly. "Linger, I just went down the mountain to find the magic weapon materials. I will definitely come back, you know? When the time comes, I'll bring you back something fun." "Really? You won't lie to Linger, right?" She stared at Xu Feng's with her big watery eyes. Facing such innocent eyes, Xu Feng really couldn't tell a lie, and couldn't help crying a little, but he still said firmly, "Really, I will definitely come back." The next day, Xu Feng got up early in the morning, tidied up his room, and went down the mountain alone without saying goodbye to anyone. Chapter 150. Tomorrow, February 2nd, it will finally be on the shelves, so I can't help but sigh. It has been more than 3 months since the book was opened in October. From autumn to winter, it feels like a really long period of time. Speaking of it, this should be my first book on the shelves. It is really a historic moment. In the new year, my small goal of putting it on the shelves has been completed. Next, I will work hard towards higher goals. All the way to the present, I am really grateful to the book friends who have been with me all the time. Every reward, every comment, and every recommendation ticket from you is a great encouragement to me, and I rely on you. Your support has brought me to where I am today. Writing a book is really a dream for me, but to be honest, I'm about to graduate this year, and I'm starting to face the pressure of finding a job. If the manuscript fee for writing a book can keep me alive, it will simply solve my food problem. It is equivalent to writing a book can become a job to support oneself. That is really the happiest thing. Therefore, I really hope that readers can support the genuine subscription. Your small support can change my life. Finally, I would like to thank my editor Blu-ray. Along the way, although we don't communicate much, but I really feel your care. Thank you for every recommendation you arrange. Thank you, equals. Last but not least, it's really going to be on the shelves. Readers, please support and subscribe. Of course, rewards are also welcome. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.